The mournful wails continued. Such heart-rending screams, even heard from a distance, sent chills down the spine and conjured terrible images in the mind. Cold mist cloaked the entire battlefield, and from the edges no one could see what was happening inside. In truth, both Itachi and Biwa Juzo's group and Kakashi's team had plenty of ways to disperse the freezing fog. A high-level wind release technique aimed correctly would have swept it away easily. For some reason, though neither side, standing at opposite ends of the long street, did so. They only watched warily and listened to the cries and the occasional crack of shattering ice mirrors. Unlike those from Konoha, who remained completely in the dark, Itachi had already formed several conjectures. He froze, however, when he heard the soft exclamation of the masked Akatsuki member who had just controlled the red Susanoo. He had suspected a number of possibilities about the opponent's identity, but a clear female voice had not been one of them. He could not think of a woman in any clan who fit the bill, someone who had awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan and wielded such potent dojutsu. On the mist-choked battlefield, Shinji lowered his gaze and watched Duma crumble into dust. "Whoa," he breathed softly. Even a simple inhale in that air stung his lungs. His throat felt torn as if by a blade. In truth, Upper Moon 5 Duma had been stronger than Shinji had expected. If Shinji had not transplanted white Zetsu cells into Karen in time, allowing her to recover the half-damaged Mangekyo, regain her dojutsu, and activate Susanoo, Shinji himself would probably have had to intervene directly. Even controlling two Mangekyo through the Susanoo lamp, he did not necessarily possess more dojutsu power than Karen. To fight Duma's blood demon art up close would have cost him too much. Karen stood beside him, apologetic. "Sir, I'm very sorry." Shinji waved a hand. "The opponent was very strong. You did well to create an opening." It had been Karen's activation of Susanoo that shattered Duma's ice crystal bodhisattva, stripping away his cover and exposing a massive weakness. Shinji had seized the chance and ended Duma with a single Amaterasu strike. Karen exhaled in relief, comforted that she had been useful. Crack! The sound of shattering ice mirrors rang out again, not far away. "There's one more," someone called. Shinji's expression darkened as he walked toward the battlefield where Haku and Akaza were engaged. He had been prepared for a trap and was not surprised by Akaza's earlier ambush. He had told Haku to stay vigilant and guard against sneak attacks. What he had not expected was that the demons would stoop to impersonating members of the Akatsuki. How shameless. That the Konoha ninjas and the real Akatsuki members, Itachi and Biwa Juzo, all happened to converge in this small town tonight suggested the two Upper Moon demons had acted under the Akatsuki guise to draw both Konoha and the Akatsuki. Their conduct revealed something else too. They had intelligence on the ninja world, understood its current state and the relationships among its factions. Having mistaken the ninja world's lantern bearers for the Akatsuki leader, the lantern bearer from the Demon Slayer world had investigated the ties between the Akatsuki and the 5 great shinobi countries. Finding that the Akatsuki was a covert organization with no formal ties, and even a tacit hostility to the 5 great nations, they changed tactics. Rather than strike openly, they attempted to sow discord between the Akatsuki and the 5 great nations, trying to use the ninja of the world to exhaust and distract the lantern bearers who protected it. Shinji snorted as he neared Haku's ice mirrors. So a lantern bearer would masquerade like that. How despicable. Cowardly, too. He called out tauntingly, "Come out, you weaklings! Don't you have the courage to face me?" From within the demonic mirror ice crystals came the enraged shouts of Upper Moon 6 Akaza. Haku had chosen not to confront Akaza directly. Instead, he used ice release to bind the powerful demon inside his mirror prisons. After watching Karen's battle with Duma, Haku had already judged the strength of the Upper Moons. An Upper Moon demon, when well fed with chakra, was certainly the equal of an elite jonin. Coupled with a near-immortal body and the brutal ability to replenish chakra by devouring flesh and blood, they were beyond Haku's individual capacity to defeat. That self-knowledge had dictated his tactic: delay and frustrate the enemy so his leader might finish them. The misty, cold street, moist and low in temperature, was nearly a perfect battlefield for an ice release user. Akaza, for his part, was a taijutsu specialist. In pure close combat, he far outclassed Duma. But for large-scale destructive techniques, Akaza was weaker than Duma. Trapped by Haku's demonic mirror ice crystals, Akaza was temporarily at a disadvantage against Haku, who could move freely inside the mirrors. Akaza's charged blows could shatter the ice mirrors, but doing so pushed him back and damaged his fist. In that brief interval, Haku repaired the shattered mirrors with chakra. The cycle repeated. Akaza smashed the mirrors and cursed. Haku frantically rebuilt them. In pure endurance, Akaza expended far less than Haku. One-on-one, the upper moon would inevitably prevail, but this was not a one-on-one fight. "Damn it!" Akaza roared after another futile attempt. His face darkened. He could no longer hear Duma's mournful screams from outside. The silence cut through him like a knife. Chapter 1 or 2. Close the door and beat the dog. Please subscribe. Akaza genuinely disliked Duma. He relished preying on the weak and put on airs, but he knew Duma's strength. Duma was an upper moon, above Akaza's rank, and both of them had been feeding on ninja from the ninja world, their flesh and blood saturated with chakra. That only made them stronger, so Akaza was shocked to see Duma fall so quickly. Worse, Duma's shriek had unnerved him. Duma was a creature of almost no emotion. Akaza could not imagine what had driven him to such a hysterical cry. A panel of Haku's demonic mirror ice crystals shifted, and a figure stepped through the gap. Akaza's face hardened. He recognized the man instantly, the one who had stood on the rooftop, watching coldly. Is he the leader of the Akatsuki? This world's lantern-bearer? Akaza thought. It was an intuition more than a deduction. If he killed this man, maybe his world would be saved. Shinji sized Akaza up too. Unlike Duma, who had nearly exhausted his chakra, Akaza's chakra presence was strong. If Haku hadn't poured everything into sealing Akaza here, dealing with an upper moon so skilled at taijutsu would have been extremely difficult. Shinji didn't expect answers. When Akaza only snorted, Shinji stopped wasting words and activated his Manjikyo Sharingan's Amaterasu. Under Shinji's gaze, black flames immediately coalesced and surged toward Akaza. Akaza's reflexes were razor-sharp. He backed away and raised his arms as a shield, but he couldn't move faster than Shinji's eyes. The black flames licked his left arm. Pain exploded through him like a shockwave. Never before, in his centuries as a demon, had he felt a fire that made his body recoil in terror. Instinctively, he tore his left arm off at the shoulder and hurled it away. The severed limb was consumed into ash in moments. The flames even began to creep along the nearby ice mirror, scorching it. Akaza's pupils constricted. It could burn ice too? What kind of flame is this? He understood then what Duma outside must have faced. Akaza's speed in reacting surprised Shinji. Despite having seen Amaterasu finish many demons, even an Upper Moon 5 had been destroyed by it. This was the first time Shinji had watched a demon counter Amaterasu by sacrificing limbs to escape. He activated Amaterasu again without hesitation. Akaza was trapped inside Haku's ice mirrors and might slip through once, but not twice. This time the black fire scorched a wider area. Both of Akaza's arms were engulfed almost simultaneously. He ripped his right arm off with his left, then tore his left arm off with his newly regrown right. The flames kept eating away, and the space he could occupy shrank. Rage flared in his eyes. Gathering all his chakra into his fists, he launched himself at Shinji with a reckless cry. Destructive kill, annihilation style. The impact detonated inside Haku's mirror prison. Cracks webbed through the ice. But Akaza's blow did not find Shinji. It slammed into a red, skeletal arm that had manifested between them out of nowhere. The strike shattered the red arm with a sickening crack, and Akaza's own fist burst apart in a spray of torn flesh and bone from the recoil, forcing him to reel away. Shinji merely narrowed his eyes. Akaza stumbled back, furious at being foiled, and realized with annoyance that Shinji hadn't used Amaterasu that instant at all. As Akaza prepared to strike again, instinct snapped his gaze upward, and then a cascade of black flames drifted down and engulfed his head. Akaza's scream was abrupt and raw. He could sacrifice limbs to save himself, but his head was the core of who he was. Once black fire wrapped it, he could not respond. The flames spread over his whole body in an instant. Ash flurried and blew away where Akaza had stood. When it cleared, nothing remained. Shinji extinguished the remaining Amaterasu flames and turned to Karen. She closed her eyes and reached out with her senses. There are 9 chakra signatures nearby, she reported, but none of them feel like demon chakra. Haku dispelled the demonic mirror ice crystals and came forward, looking exhausted. He had poured an enormous amount of chakra into trapping Akaza, especially with Duma's blood demon art in effect, which had enhanced ice release, or else an upper moon like Akaza might not have been contained at all. The breach had been blocked. The rift was closing. Shinji's notification chimed. Only 2 upper moon demons. He mulled that over. It looks like their real aim was to provoke a clash between the Akatsuki and the 5 great shinobi countries, he said finally. The 2 upper moons, one overt, one covert, ambushing me was probably just a convenient side job. The second update is here. Please give recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 103, Settlement. Scanning for loot. Loot parsing in progress. Loot ice crystal creation technique, modified by blood demon art. Loot killing intent perception, modified by blood demon art. As Shinji considered the reports, the lantern bearer fed him the collected loot one item at a time. Ice crystal creation and killing intent perception. He thought it through. The ice crystal creation technique had to be Duma's Upper Moon 5. Its value had been demonstrated in the fight. There are few jutsu in the ninja world that can stand up to Susanoo, but before his chakra ran out, Duma's ice crystal bodhisattva had been no weaker than Karen's Susanoo. If a different Mangekyo Sharingan user hadn't intervened, Duma's technique might have held longer. If Shinji could master that technique and had enough chakra, he might reproduce the 20-meter ice crystal bodhisattva Duma had formed on the long street. Killing intent perception had to be Akaza's Upper Moon 6. In Shinji's memory, Akaza's long life of battle had honed an ability to sense an opponent's fighting spirit, to predict movements and read killing intent until it became instinct. Killing intent perception was Akaza's greatest legacy, an ability born of endless combat. Shinji decided how to distribute the spoils quickly. The ice crystal creation technique was almost made for Haku, an ice release bloodline user, so there was no doubt who should take it. Killing intent perception would be invaluable to Shinji himself, boosting his combat sense and helping prevent surprise attacks. He picked up the orb labeled Killing Intent Perception and pointed to the other orb, saying, "This is for you, Haku." Haku and Karen followed Shinji's allocation without question. Haku stepped forward and took the ice crystal creation technique. Reward settlement in progress. Rating, C. Received gift from the ninja world, chakra, small amount, natural energy affinity, trace amount. Please select one. Shinji had expected a C. The demons had chosen the time and place of the invasion. For him, the lantern-bearer of the ninja world, it had been a purely defensive response. Once the battle erupted in the public night market, a high rating was unlikely. The commotion had been enormous and full of witnesses, many of whom had already fled. He couldn't realistically seal all their memories with genjutsu to reduce contamination. Even though he had ended the fight quickly and neutralized the 2 upper moons after they lost lantern-bearer protection, an A rank was out of reach. He tried to deduce the scoring criteria, the duration of the invader's presence after losing lantern-bearer protection, the amount of contamination caused, and the strength of the impact on the ninja world. The first 2 were straightforward. The third was harder to quantify, but it clearly mattered. Otherwise, his first encounter, with only one witness whose memory he sealed, wouldn't have earned an E. He chose the natural energy affinity. An indescribable sensation flooded his chest, subtle but distinct. He memorized it directly. It might be useful later. Then he instructed the lantern bearer mentally, "Settle my merit points." Total merit points settlement in progress. Total merit points, 79. Only 3 points added. Shinji frowned. Only 3 points for that? It must be that advancement as a lantern bearer required higher ranks. He'd have to get an A to level up. He shook his head and glanced at Haku and Karen, both panting heavily from exertion, chests rising and falling. The ninja allied forces and the Akatsuki were still outside the cold mist and could arrive at any moment. No time to linger. "Let's go," he called. In an instant, the 3 of them vanished from their spot. Outside the cold mist, Kurenai Yuhi, who had been on high alert, frowned. "Everyone, listen, there's no sound inside anymore." Asuma and the others strained their ears and found that the wails from within the mist had stopped. The rumbling had gone quiet. The cracking of ice mirrors no longer echoed. Aoba Yamashiro asked, "Is the battle over?" Asuma shrugged. "Most likely." Kurenai asked what everyone wanted to know, which side had won. Kakashi remained strangely silent, watching the mist intently. Then a Konoha-style signal flare streaked into the night not far away, and one after another figures landed beside Kakashi. Reinforcements from nearby had come, 3 squads, 12 ninja in all. Their arrival bolstered the allied forces' morale. The cold mist on the long street began to thin. Those with sharper eyes could already make out the battlefield. Kakashi's expression soured. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. He flashed onto the scene while a thin veil of mist still hung in the air. He found only scattered ice shards, several scorched patches, and the bodies of unfortunate townsfolk caught in the crossfire. The Akatsuki members who had been fighting were gone, vanished without a trace, not even a single corpse left behind. Chapter 104, Looking for People. Please subscribe. Asuma and the others trailed Kakashi onto the battlefield. They spread out, scanning the ruined streets, and then all at once demanded, "Where did they go?" Kurenai Yuhi looked to Aoba Yamashiro. In their squad, Aoba, who commanded the tracking ninja crows, was responsible for keeping watch over the area. But now his face was as confused as anyone else's. No one came out of the cold mist. Aoba said with unnerving certainty. Uchiha Itachi and Biwa Juzo also got away before the mist dispersed. His trained crows had been circling over the town the whole time. They had watched the civilians evacuate and had tracked Itachi and Biwa's movements. Aoba was sure no one had emerged from the mist. Asuma frowned. They didn't just vanish into thin air. Could one of them have a space-time ninjutsu? Kakashi knelt at a scorched patch of earth and let his fingers trace the burn marks. Even the stones were reduced to dust. What kind of fire release does this? Kurenai stepped up beside him. What do we do now? Pursue them? Although both groups who had been impersonating the Akatsuki vanished, the team could still track Itachi and Biwa, who had just fled. After a pause, Kakashi nodded. Let's go. Outside the town, Itachi and Biwa Juzo moved quickly away from the chaos. Today was strange, Biwa muttered. Their objective had been simple, eliminate those pretending to be Akatsuki. Yet another masked group had suddenly appeared and only added to the confusion. Watching Itachi's silence, Biwa asked, "How are we going to explain this when we get back?" "Tell the truth," Itachi replied calmly. Unlike Biwa, Itachi had remembered something from the past. When Deidara had been recruited, he'd once asked Itachi, "No mask?" It had seemed a quirk back then. Now, seeing the 3 masked figures in red cloud cloaks in the town, the memory sparked a possibility in his mind. Could there be a faction inside the Akatsuki he didn't know about? Was it on the leader's orders, or connected to the one who called himself Uchiha Madara? Madara, too, liked masks. Itachi felt it was plausible the 3 were linked to him. A sudden whoosh cut through his thoughts. Biwa had drawn a kunai and thrown it backward. A crow cried out. A tracked ninja crow, a kunai lodged in its body, fell from the sky. Biwa glanced over his shoulder. "Looks like someone's following us." Itachi didn't turn. "Ignore them." "Fine." Biwa relaxed his grip on the kubikirabocho. A moment later, Kakashi and the others reached the spot where the crow had fallen. Aoba looked down at the bird and shook his head in frustration. "Sorry, they were too careful. Let's return to the village and report to the Hokage," Kakashi said with a sigh. The tracking crow had been killed. Continuing the chase would be pointless without eyes in the sky. Word of the brutal clash spread fast. News channels carried accounts of the fight to the major ninja villages. Konoha and the Akatsuki members present had the most detailed reports, but even the limited information other villages received was enough to make them sit up and take notice. Akatsuki's name, barely heard of before, became known throughout the ninja world. The revelations that the Akatsuki had gathered so many S-rank missing nin and wielded power far beyond any ordinary organization made every village cautious. In the Hidden Rain village, Pain stood atop a tall tower, rain drumming down, watching the gray horizon. Konan joined him. "Uchiha Itachi and Biwa Juzo have come back," she said. They reported that the imposters were the same mysterious group with the engraved eyes that attacked you before. "Have you investigated their background?" Pain asked. Konan shook her head. There's another point to note. She relayed what Itachi and Biwa had seen and added, I suspect those three who helped us pursue the imposters were secretly recruited by Uchiha Madara. He's been acting behind your back. Pain's voice was low. I didn't expect him to have assembled another group. Conan frowned. I worry we don't have enough manpower. Don't worry, I'm here, Pain said after a beat. Then, more thoughtfully, but your concern is valid. Let's look for more people. Konan inclined her head. In a dark cave, Zetsu rose from the ground and informed Obito, the news Itachi and Biwa brought back seems to be true. A shadow of concern crossed Obito's face. Those three masked figures, are they really Akatsuki members? Zetsu shook his head. I've never seen them. Obito snorted. Nagato has been hiding things from me. A Uchiha who can manifest Susanoo, where did he find one? He frowned. In Obito's view, a proud Uchiha capable of using the Mangekyo Sharingan and Susanoo would not willingly pretend to be a mere Akatsuki member. That pointed to the three masked figures actually being true Akatsuki, unlikely recruits Nagato had concealed. If Nagato had recruited people without telling him, Obito circled through possibilities, guilt and paranoia tightening his thoughts. He had been the one to bury the first generation of the Akatsuki led by Yahiko. The past weighed on him. Zetsu voiced a worry. What if Nagato gets out of control? Obito considered it, then shook his head. He shouldn't turn against me now. He still needs our strength, but we need to prepare. Zetsu asked, Prepare how? We need to look for people too, Obito said. He was especially wary of the mysterious Mangekyo Uchiha. Each Mangekyo Sharingan manifests unique abilities. Facing one without caution was dangerous. Second update posted. Please give recommendation and monthly votes. Chapter 105. Report. Hokage Office. Kakashi and the others finished their report, and the third Hokage sat silent, pipe in hand. The three advisory elders present showed different reactions. Utatane Koharu's brow was furrowed. Confusion clouded her eyes. The information Kakashi had brought back answered none of her questions and only deepened the mystery surrounding the missing ninja. Homura Mitokado looked thoughtful. Danzo was the strangest. He kept his gaze lowered as if dozing, giving nothing away. After a long moment, the third Hokage waved a hand. Kakashi, stay. Everyone else, leave. Asuma hesitated, then turned and followed Kurenai Yuhi and Oba Yamashiro out of the office. Once the others had filed out, Kakashi bowed to the third Hokage and apologized. I'm sorry, I couldn't make contact this time. The person Kakashi meant was, of course, Itachi. The third Hokage felt a pang of regret. If Kakashi had reached him, many of the questions might have been settled. Utatane Koharu couldn't help asking, what exactly is this Akatsuki organization? Why have they absorbed so many S-rank rogue ninja? What do they want? Homura Mitokado glanced at Danzo. Danzo, didn't you have dealings with a group called Akatsuki before? Naming him snapped Danzo out of his apparent reverie. He didn't deny it. I did take part in an operation against Akatsuki, he said, measured. But that operation was planned by Hanzo of the Hidden Rain Village. I was merely a witness. Moreover, Hanzo destroyed the so-called Akatsuki in that operation. Hanzo, Homura repeated, his expression darkening. In his understanding, Hanzo, leader of the Hidden Rain Village, was one of the strongest shinobi in the world, legendary enough to be called a demigod. No one pressed Danzo further. Usually a man who never let an advantage go, he was uncharacteristically quiet now. In truth, Danzo knew more about Akatsuki than anyone in the room. The operation years ago had not been Hanzo's doing alone. Danzo himself had instigated it from the shadows, hoping to weaken the Hidden Rain Village. But the plan had flaws. Akatsuki was not completely wiped out. Some members had scattered and gone into hiding. Danzo had spent years investigating them, but had avoided the Hidden Rain Village, convinced it was sealed under Hanzo's watchful eye. He had assumed Akatsuki had faded away. Now, to his surprise and alarm, the organization had not only resurfaced, but gathered a group of dangerous S-rank rogues. The third Hokage set down his pipe and looked at Kakashi. Tell me what you think. Kakashi considered a moment, then spoke slowly. I believe Akatsuki has split. This incident seems to be the result of that split. The third's eyes narrowed. Explain. Kakashi picked up the thread. From what I've gathered, Akatsuki previously avoided the 5 great nations. They didn't want open conflict with our countries, but now they've been targeting ninja from the Five Nations directly, which is unlike their earlier pattern. Utatane Koharu cut in. So you're saying there may be two factions fighting among themselves, and that's what caused these attacks? Kakashi nodded. Yes. Even so, Koharu said, Konoha can't tolerate Akatsuki's existence. Homura agreed. Recruiting S-rank rogues from various villages is an affront to all of us. Kakashi urged the third Hokage. Hokage-sama, Akatsuki's strength is greater than we expected. If we are to handle them, we should cooperate with the other villages. The third Hokage inclined his head, considering. Night, a small grove inside Konoha. Shiro slipped up to a large tree and whispered, Is there something urgent you wanted to contact me about? A dark figure stepped out from behind the trunk and spoke quietly. Have you uncovered any information about Akatsuki? Shiro's heart tightened. The figure must have sensed it and asked, What's wrong? Nothing, Shiro said quickly. I haven't found anything. He forced a shake of his head, then dared, Has something happened? The figure's voice was low. 2 squads recently went missing in the village. The higher-ups suspect Akatsuki. Shiro understood. The disappearances of the hidden mist ninja were clearly the work of Doma and Akaza, upper moon impersonators operating under the Akatsuki name. The dark figure continued. We've also received information that there's more than one Uchiha associated with Akatsuki. There's a suspected female Uchiha, and she's said to possess the Mangekyo Sharingan, an extraordinary power. That's not an Uchiha, it's Karin, Shiro thought. Before the operation, he hadn't known the leader had secretly transplanted a pair of Mangekyo eyes into Karin. He only learned when the leader used Genjutsu to trigger her Sharingan during the mission. The dark figure pressed on, certain. So the Uchiha are involved. You approached Uchiha Shinji. Did you find anything? Shiro shook his head. Shinji has no ties to Akatsuki. He added silently, a guilty thought he could not speak aloud. Sorry, I'm the one with the connection. I'm the Akatsuki agent embedded in Konoha. The figure said, It seems Shinji is an abandoned Uchiha. The real key is Sasuke. I can't get close to Sasuke, Shiro said, voice tight. He refuses to interact with me. Then find a way, the figure snapped coldly. The village didn't place you in Konoha to befriend discarded children. Don't forget your mission. Shiro could only nod. The figure gave one more instruction. Also, investigate Kimimaro. Why has he suddenly appeared at Konoha's Ninja Academy? Shiro blinked. Wasn't Kimimaro arranged by the village? War, Chapter 106. It's all remnants. Please subscribe. He had always believed Kimimaro had been placed in Konoha by the village to get close to Uchiha Sasuke. Now, hearing the Shadow's assignment, he was surprised to learn that Kimimaro hadn't been arranged by the village at all. The Shadow's expression soured. So you need to find out how this remnant of the Kaguya clan passed Konoha's scrutiny. White nodded helplessly. All right? The Shadow sighed. I don't want to force you, but you must understand. Intelligence doesn't come to you on its own. I'll do my best, White promised. The Shadow's tone hardened. Be careful. The Akatsuki are S-rank missing nin from various villages, extremely dangerous, fanatical. If your identity is exposed during the investigation, no one will be able to save you. White opened his mouth several times, wanting to argue that the Akatsuki were formed to fight demons invading the ninja world, an organization devoted to saving the world, not a bunch of vicious lunatics. But he had no standing to defend them, so he swallowed the words. Anything else? Shinji and I agreed to spar tonight. If there's nothing more, I'll go. Go on. The Shadow paused, then added, Use your relationship with Uchiha Shinji to get close to Uchiha Sasuke. No one will suspect you that way. White nodded again and left the small grove. At almost the same moment, in a private room of a struggling noodle shop, a middle-aged man in a chef's uniform set a steaming bowl down in front of Karen with a practiced smile. He glanced down the corridor, saw no one, and quietly closed the private room door. The smile vanished. Coldly, he asked, Why did it take you so long to contact me? Karen whispered, I was with my classmates all day. The chef studied her, then said, Orders from above. You need to find a way to get close to Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Shinji and investigate a mysterious organization called Akatsuki. What? Karen flinched. The chef frowned. What's with that expression? Karen forced herself to calm down. As a member of the Akatsuki, She never expected the grass village to task her with investigating the Akatsuki itself. The chef wouldn't have connected her to the Akatsuki. He assumed her reaction was just reluctance, as she'd resisted other missions before. "Carry out the mission," he ordered, glaring. "You don't want your mother to be disappointed, do you?" Karen bowed her head, anger flashing in her eyes. She forced a steady breath and asked, "Is my mother all right?" "Yes," the chef answered without hesitation. "She's fine." Karen swallowed the suspicion that the grass village was using her and hiding her mother's true condition. Shinji hadn't yet arranged a meeting between her and her mother, but Shinji had sent her mother's letter through Coal Ball, so Karen already knew her mother's recent situation from that letter. After leaving the noodle shop, Karen headed toward the training grounds. On the way, she met White, who looked downcast. "What's wrong?" she asked. White managed a bitter smile. "They contacted me." White and Karen had long since grown close. Both were planted in Konoha as infiltrators and had become confidants. White knew Karen was a spy for the grass village. Karen knew White was an informant for the Hidden Mist. "They contacted you now? Do they want you to get close to Sasuke again?" Karen asked. White nodded. "They want me to investigate the Akatsuki too." Karen couldn't help a short laugh. White gave her a look. "What's so funny? I was just contacted by them too," she said. "Guess what they want me to do?" White frowned. "Don't tell me. They want you to investigate the Akatsuki as well?" "Exactly," Karen said. "They want me to get close to Shinji and Sasuke and dig up information on the Akatsuki." White's brow tightened. It was one thing for the Hidden Mist to watch both the Uchiha and the Akatsuki. The third Mizukage's suspected subjugation by Uchiha Genjutsu had left the Mist leadership shaken. But for the Grass Village to suddenly focus on the Akatsuki felt off. "Why would the Grass Village want to investigate our Akatsuki?" he asked. Karen shook her head. "They never explain anything when they give me missions. I don't know." White exhaled. "Then it's probably something those demons did. That would make all the villages nervous and point them at us." Karen's face went pale. "What should we do? Tell the boss?" White shook his head. "Do you think the boss wouldn't already know what we discover?" "You're right." Karen relaxed a little. White continued in a lower voice. "I don't know what's going on with the outer circle. The boss clearly doesn't trust them much." Earlier in town, White had seen Uchiha Itachi and Biwa Juzo standing at the far end of a long street. He had expected they'd assist directly against the upper moon, but instead they simply observed. He'd never had a clear chance to ask the boss about that. Karen waved the concern away. "I don't care about those people. I only answer to the boss." White smiled, relieved. "Right. We're the inner circle. We don't need to get involved in the outer circle's affairs. We listen to the boss and follow orders." They arrived at the training grounds, speaking in low voices. Although night had fallen, Shinji was still practicing taijutsu under the floodlights, a steady rhythm of strikes and footwork. From a distance, White gestured toward him. "Even though Shinji is an Uchiha, he doesn't know anything. We mustn't involve him." Karen nodded solemnly. "Yes. He can't know about our missions. It would only put him in danger." Both White and Karen cared for Shinji. It was natural. They were outcasts who had been accepted by him, and that made them protective. Shinji noticed them watching and waved. "What are you two whispering about over there? Come on, I've been waiting for you." Chapter 107, Final Exam Ninja Academy. On the top floor of the teaching building, the third Hokage stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the final exams taking place on the playground below. A number of advisory elders stood beside him. A sudden burst of cheers rose from the field. The group at the window looked down and saw Sasuke standing in the center of the arena with one hand on his hip, 3 opponents sprawled at his feet. Homura Mitokado smiled. "That Sasuke has gotten stronger again." Utatane Koharu nodded. "His rate of growth rivals his brother Itachi's. He's another Uchiha prodigy, like Shisui or Itachi." The third Hokage inclined his head. Even as professor of ninjutsu, he had to admit that Sasuke's improvement had outstripped expectations. If anyone had doubted that Sasuke had subdued the Ninetales, they were now more inclined to believe it. The Uchiha were capable of miracles when driven, and Sasuke's talent made feats that once seemed impossible feel less so. Among his classmates, few could match him. especially since he'd awakened the Sharingan. Those who could, like Kimimaro, were older by 3 years. Matched in age, the outcome was uncertain. Danzo snorted. The faster Sasuke rose, the more he regretted not moving sooner to bring the boy under his control. His gaze swept along the playground. Shinji, below, felt a faint thread of killing intent and looked up toward the distant teaching building. He'd recently learned to perceive killing intent, a subtle predictive sense that, when woven into intuition, could produce strange effects. The distance to Danzo was far beyond the usual range of the technique, but Shinji still felt that distant chill, barely there. Next match, Shinji's team versus Yumiko Kasagi's team. Mizuki, proctoring the exam, called the next bout. Shinji waved and led Haku and Karen onto the field. After making the confrontation seal, his figure blurred and he rushed the opponents. With a knee strike, a side kick, and a hand chop, all 3 of the other students were sent tumbling, moaning in defeat. Mizuki blinked in surprise, then announced, "Shinji's team wins." Shinji made the reconciliation seal and casually walked his teammates off the field. The students erupted into chatter. Shinji's gotten even stronger. There's no suspense. Haku and Karen are lucky they didn't have to fight. I want to be on Shinji's team. Shinji listened, thinking, idiots. I'm doing this for your own good. If I don't get Karen under control, her strength might spiral, and she could accidentally hurt someone. Karen was still in a fusion period. Chakra was building in her body, and her strength and speed were changing daily. In sparring, Shinji had to be completely focused. One careless moment, and even a seemingly ordinary punch from Karen could injure him. Karen's physique was exceptional. Compared to Obito, back when he had white Zetsu cells grafted on after his injuries, she was healthier and more complete. Obito once broke a boulder with a single desperate punch and later smashed through a stone wall enveloped by spiral white Zetsu. The potential of white Zetsu augmentation was clear. Karen's base body was even better, so her development potential was enormous. Mizuki felt a complex mix of emotions. The sight of Shinji's easy victory bred resentment. I slaved to reach Chunin, betrayed my principles, and this kid, born an Uchiha, has this much talent. Why? Damn it. Shinji glanced toward Mizuki. Sensing Shinji's look, Mizuki forced a smile and turned away. Shinji returned the smile and left the arena. On the sidelines, Tenten asked Neji, "Who are you watching?" Neji withdrew his gaze. He had the Byakugan active and had tried to study Shinji's movements to prepare for their match, but his attention had been caught by Karen standing beside Shinji. Her chakra was unusually dense. He wondered if it had something to do with the Whirlpool clan, but he pushed that thought aside and refocused on Shinji. To Neji, Shinji was his only true rival in the class. By the time the first 2 rounds ended, only Shinji's team and Neji's team remained for the final round. The crowd buzzed. Supporters of both sides screamed encouragement. Neji assumed the confrontation seal and stared at Shinji. "I've waited for this day," he said quietly. "I've looked forward to it." Shinji smiled faintly and returned the seal. Mizuki announced, "Begin." Neji instantly activated the Byakugan and took a gentle fist stance. Expecting Shinji to rush him as in earlier rounds, he prepared a defensive strategy to deny openings. But Shinji didn't charge Neji. His figure blurred, and instead he darted for Rock Lee, who was standing nearby. Rock Lee hadn't expected it, and was knocked out of bounds before he could react. Shinji's form flickered again, and he moved toward Tenten. Neji's brow flared. Shinji had deliberately avoided him to eliminate teammates first. Neji snorted and mirrored the tactic. If Shinji was taking out teammates, he would do the same. He lunged at Haku, leaving Shinji to deal with the rest, planning to make it a one-on-one after clearing the field. With the confidence his Byakugan gave him, Neji expected to dispatch Haku and Karen before Shinji could finish Tenten. The arena took on an unexpected pattern. Rather than engage each other immediately, the 2 geniuses moved to eliminate the other's teammates. From above, the advisory council watched, and Danzo muttered, "2 arrogant brats." On a rooftop across the field, Kakashi lounged against a water tank with a copy of Ika Icha Paradise and watched lazily. Using the opponent's teammates as stepping stones, huh? Around the playground, almost every eye, overt and covert, tracked the clash between Uchiha and Hyuga. Neji attacked Haku like a descending tiger, palms charged with chakra to mimic Shinji's swift, decisive takedown of Rock Lee. Wind howled as his palm strikes headed straight for Haku's shoulders, the hits that would immediately render Haku unable to fight. But Haku's form dropped, and awkwardly but effectively, he sidestepped the blows. Neji stiffened. He hadn't expected the soft-spoken Haku to dodge like that. Impatience flared. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Tenten leaping, struggling to resist Shinji with the ninja tools sealed in her scrolls. Neji couldn't waste time. Seeing Haku move away, he shifted his focus and lunged for Karen, planning with his Byakugan how he'd return to Haku afterward. But Karen sprang back so fast, Neji was taken aback. She leaped clear and put distance between herself and him. Neji's expression darkened with indecision. Before he could decide, Tenten was knocked out of bounds by Shinji. Rock Lee, already ousted, rose and shouted, "Neji, I'm sorry, I was careless." Tenten pouted. "Shinji's too mean." Neji looked at Shinji, Haku, and Karen surrounding him. His face grew grim. Just as he feared they might gang up on him, Shinji waved at Haku and Karen. "You two, stand down." Neji scowled. "What are you doing, Shinji? I don't want you to go easy on me." "I'm not going easy," Shinji replied. "Those two deadweights would only slow me down." He thought privately, "Without my Mangekyo Sharingan, I can't even rely on them." Neji didn't know Shinji's private reasoning. He lunged. Shinji quietly activated his breathing method and his killing intent perception and met Neji's gentle fist head-on. Fists and feet collided. Bang, 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 all across the playground. The sound drew attention from the rest of the exam halls. "Go, Shinji," Shion shouted. Yakumo Kurama asked Kimimaro, "Who'll win?" Kimimaro didn't answer, though a flicker of emotion crossed his indifferent face. Naruto gaped. "Are Shinji and Neji really that strong?" Sakura scolded him. "Idiot! Of course, they're both geniuses." Sasuke folded his arms, studying the match intently. He had assumed Shinji's preoccupation with medical ninjutsu might have dulled his combat edge, but Shinji's rhythm had changed in a way Sasuke couldn't easily categorize. There was something strange about Shinji's taijutsu today. Precise, uncanny timing that kept turning defenses into openings. Neji felt the same. With his Byakugan advantage, he should dominate in close combat, but Shinji dodged and countered at the exact necessary moments. The more they fought, the more Neji's confidence wavered. He began to question his gentle fist. Shinji sensed Neji's hesitation when a punch was thrown and seized the moment, closing the distance. Neji was startled. In his supposed strong zone, he'd lost control and allowed Shinji to flip the situation. After slipping past Neji's hurried palm, Shinji struck, kicking Neji clean off his feet and sending him flying. The playground fell utterly silent. What had been a peak clash between two titans ended abruptly. Shinji smiled and called to Mizuki on the sidelines. "Mizuki-sensei, what are you staring at?" Mizuki blinked, then announced with a complicated expression, "Shinji's team wins. Chapter 108, Another Immortal Body. Please subscribe." Neji lay on the ground, dazed. It wasn't that he hadn't accepted defeat. He'd already braced himself to lose to Shinji, but he couldn't accept this kind of loss. Taijutsu was his pride. He could stomach losing to ninjutsu, tools, or even genjutsu, but to be beaten in pure hand-to-hand combat gnawed at him. Lee and Tenten rushed over, helping him up and murmuring reassurances, but Neji's eyes stayed fixed on Shinji's retreating form. Across the field, Sasuke's expression was taut, a flash of surprise in his face. "I thought he'd been focused on medical training lately and falling behind in combat, but I didn't expect." Sasuke had been watching Shinji too. Seeing Shinji visit the medical team every day and ease up on training, he'd assumed Shinji wouldn't advance quickly. To have Neji dispatched so easily was unexpected. Sakura leaned in toward Sasuke, biting her lip. "Sasuke, are we going to be okay?" Naruto balled his fists. "Sakura, just wait and see how I do." "It'd be a miracle if you don't hold Sasuke back," Sakura shot back. Sasuke's mouth twisted. "Don't worry. Neji must have been slacking. I'm different." Iruka's voice carried across the grounds. Next match, Sasuke's team versus Kimimaro's team. All eyes shifted at once. Sasuke, feeling the attention, gave a small hand wave to Naruto and Sakura and strode to the center of the field. "My turn." Naruto rolled up his sleeves and stepped forward, eager for the chance to prove himself. Sakura followed, nervous about facing Kimimaro. On the other side, Kimimaro led Shion and Yakumo Kurama out. Shion bristled. "Kimimaro, what's our plan?" Kimimaro shrugged. "Plan?" After a pause, he shook his head. "There isn't one." Shion blinked. Then how should we work with you? It doesn't matter what you do. Shion stamped her foot. Hey, we're a team. Yakumo rubbed her forehead. I knew this would happen. Sasuke moved to meet Kimimaro and opened his Sharingan. Kimimaro, all the humiliation you gave me before, I'll pay it back today. Under my Sharingan, you're nothing. On the teaching building, the third Hokage and the Council of Elders watched with rapt attention. Shinji versus Neji had been exciting, but for the village's leaders, Sasuke's performance and his Sharingan were more consequential. Sasuke had awakened his Sharingan at 7, and there were records suggesting he might have once controlled the Nine Tails. To them, Sasuke's potential mattered above any single victory. Shinji's accomplishments at the academy were impressive, but without a bloodline like the Sharingan, his long-term ceiling would be limited. Utatane Koharu leaned forward. Who do you think will win? Danzo's voice, flat and sharp, replied, It's been a long time. Uchiha Sasuke should have adapted to Kimimaro's taijutsu by now. He has a real chance. Homura Mitokado smiled wryly. Don't forget, Kimimaro comes from a distinguished family. Danzo shrugged. If Sasuke still can't beat Kimimaro, then the academy isn't pushing him enough. He needs more efficient training. Koharu and Homura fell silent at the implication. The third Hokage shot Danzo a wary look. It was clear Danzo still had designs on Sasuke. On the field, Kimimaro was the first to move, vanishing in a blink with the body flicker technique and striking at Sasuke. In the past, Sasuke might have been left reeling, but after repeated fights with Kimimaro, he'd learned the rhythm. His speed still lagged behind Kimimaro's, but the Sharingan let him anticipate and counter enough to stay in the fray. The two tangled, trading faster and faster blows. Even Naruto, Sakura, Shion, and Yakumo, who had come onto the field, fell silent, watching. I can see it all. I see everything clearly, Sasuke shouted, excitement building. With daily training, the perception granted by his Sharingan was sharpening. He could now faintly read Kimimaro's movements. They broke apart with a dull clash. Sasuke smirked. You feel it too, right? My Sharingan's seen right through your moves. Kimimaro's gaze fixed on Sasuke's eyes. He thought, as expected of the eyes Orochimaru coveted. Sasuke's hands formed signs as he spoke slowly, almost theatrically. Kimimaro, be proud. Today you'll be a stepping stone on my path of revenge. Kimimaro was baffled. He hadn't even used his full strength. From the stands, Haku murmured, Sasuke's improved too quickly. In less than a month, he's adapted to Kimimaro's speed. Karen tilted her head. Do you think Sasuke can win? Haku hesitated. I can't say for sure. Then he looked across the field at Shinji. Shinji, what do you think? Shinji only smiled. He understood Kimimaro's strength intimately. In the original timeline, Kimimaro had been already active in the assassination of the fourth Kazekage, while Sasuke and Naruto were still training. The Sound Four had cut down highly skilled Konoha Jonin and nearly killed several Jonin. Yet in Kimimaro's presence, they were like kittens. Sasuke was holding his own now, but Sasuke had pushed the limits of his Sharingan to do it. Kimimaro had only used his normal taijutsu. More importantly, Kimimaro himself possessed a Kekkei Genkai, the corpse bone pulse. The battle flared again. Sasuke unleashed a fire release and used the blaze as cover to fire a dozen kunai, each attached to steel wire. Timing the launches perfectly, the kunai collided in midair. The wires tangled and formed a net among the flames that obscured Kimimaro's vision. The precision stunned the watching students. This was a level of tool control most 7-year-olds couldn't hope to achieve. Only those with an eye technique might risk such a gambit. From the teaching building, Koharu and Homura exchanged surprised looks. Even Danzo's usually stony face betrayed a flicker of astonishment. The third Hokage watched, thoughtful. Neji, who'd seen the move before, turned and glared toward Shinji. Sasuke was copying him. Again. Shinji only smiled inwardly. He'd used the thread manipulation technique once before after taking it from Rui, and Sasuke had apparently learned and practiced it himself. As the net fell, Kimimaro ignored it. He activated the body flicker, charged through the fire release, and closed the distance in an instant. Sasuke, still riding his own smugness, was caught off guard. Kimimaro's knee smashed into his chest. Then Kimimaro grabbed his neck and lifted him clean off the ground. Sasuke struggled, but Kimimaro's grip felt like iron. Around the grounds, people gasped. What just happened? Did he pass through the fire? For a moment, no one spoke. Kimimara's clothes were singed, but his body showed no burns, no wounds, no blood, not even a scar. Sasuke, choking and bewildered, could only slap at the hand on his throat. Sakura covered her mouth, paralyzed with fear. Naruto charged in, yelling, but Kimimaro flicked him away with a foot so hard Naruto tumbled out of bounds. With the same bored stare, Kimimaro tossed Sasuke out of bounds as well. Seeing both teammates eliminated, Sakura conceded, hands trembling. Iruka announced, tone complicated, "This match goes to Kimimaro's team." Sasuke, thrown aside, lay panting and resentful. He couldn't understand how Kimimaro had marched through his fire release without harm. His clothes had burned, but there were no injuries on his body. It made no sense. Shion and Yakumo clustered around Kimimaro in exasperation. "Are you crazy? It's only a final exam. Why go that hard?" Kimimaro cocked his head, unconcerned. Some distance away, Curran whispered, "Huh, why does his body?" Haku answered softly, "That's the corpse bone pulse." Shinji watched Kimimaro with renewed interest. The sight had surprised him, but his medical knowledge and study of human anatomy let him think beyond the obvious. He'd always assumed the corpse bone pulse meant fighting with protruding bones, but he now realized it entailed far more. When bones extend from the body, they should tear muscle and skin. Kimimaro could make bones burst forth without leaving him bloody. That implied immense control over tissues and organs, and powerful regenerative ability. The body could shift muscle away from the protruding bone, but surface damage would be inevitable. The fact there was no bleeding meant wounds were stopped and healed almost instantly. Shinji stroked his chin and looked from Kimimaro to Neji, the gears turning in his head. He'd long known the Hyuga and Kaguya clans were related. Now he wondered if their relationship mirrored that between Uchiha and Senju, one clan specialized in a sage eye, the other in a sage's body. Not the sage of Six Paths himself, but his brother, Hamura Otsutsuki, the line that bore a different kind of legacy. Shinji's eyes held thought as the crowd began to disperse and the training ground settled into uneasy murmurs. Chapter 109. How about giving it a try? Shinji's thoughts widened. If the sage eyes of the Uchiha and the sage body of the Senju, or the Uzumaki, combined ultimately led to the Rinnegan, then what would the sage eyes of the Hyuga and the sage body of the Kaguya point to when fused? Logically, tracing back to the bloodline source usually returns you to the ancestor's power. That would mean Otsutsuki Hamura, the shared ancestor of the Hyuga and Kaguya clans, whose eyes were Byakugan. Even in purity, Hamura's Byakugan would surpass the Hyuga's, but it would still be Byakugan. Conversely, among Hamura's descendants on the moon, a new ocular Kekkei Genkai, the Tenseigen, had arisen, surpassing the Byakugan. So the fusion might produce an extraordinarily pure Byakugan, or an entirely new eye like the Tenseigen. No one could say for sure. Why not give it a try? The idea struck Shinji hard and fast. Transplant Kimimaro's cells into Neiji's body to see what the union of those two great bloodlines would yield. He let the thought sit as the final exams wrapped up and the interclass tournament began. The atmosphere on the training ground crackled with excitement. Class pride was at stake. Shinji's team met another class from the same grade in the first round. With Shinji and Neji on their side, the match was an easy win. In the second round, they drew Sasuke's team, who had likewise dispatched their first opponents without trouble. "I didn't expect to draw them so soon," Tenten said, a flicker of regret in her voice. In her view, if they avoided Sasuke and Kimimaro's class, her class could sweep most other teams, even the higher-ranked ones. Lee clenched his fists, thrilled at the prospect of facing geniuses like Sasuke and Kimimaro. Tenten put a hand to her forehead, half exasperated at his enthusiasm. Neji approached Shinji. "This is a class match. We have to do our best." Shinji didn't answer right away. He looked Neji over, still thinking about the possibility of transplanting Kimimaro's tissue into him. When Neji caught his stare, he asked, mildly curious, "What are you looking at?" "Oh, nothing." Shinji's voice was casual. He straightened, looking toward the field. "I'll give it my all." This match was the chance he'd been waiting for to get some of Kimimaro's cells. Without a formal sparring opportunity, trying to obtain them would be almost impossible. Now he could use the match as cover. On the opposing side, Sasuke's class grew tense upon learning their opponents. Shikamaru blew out a breath. "Great, we ran into them too soon." Choji, muffled with snacks, mumbled, "What's there to worry about? We have two monsters, Kimimaro and Sasuke." Ino snapped, tugging his ear. "Don't call Sasuke a monster. He's a genius." Hinata glanced nervously at Neji. Shino, who had been silent for a while, finally spoke up. "If we face them, we might as well surrender." Kiba blinked. "Face who? Surrender to who?" Hinata shook her head quickly. "No, I'll do my best. I won't hold you back." Kiba still didn't follow. Akamaru barked in agreement. Shino pushed his glasses up. "It's just my assessment. Whether we meet Hyuga Neji's team or Uchiha Shinji's, the odds aren't in our favor." Kiba scowled. "We're not just going to give up. We can at least try to sap their chakra." Akamaru added another bark. Sasuke, who had been stewing over a recent loss, seemed to have recovered more quickly than others expected. He had been beaten by Kimimaro many times and had grown used to it. This new defeat was just another challenge. He looked over at Shinji and Neji and said shortly, "Today the three of us will settle who's superior." Sakura bit her lip. "Sasuke, what if we face Shinji and Neji?" "Don't worry," Sasuke replied. "They'll probably target you first. Keep them busy and buy me time." Naruto pressed his palms together, eager. "Don't worry, I won't go down easy." Naruto had performed well in the previous round and brimmed with confidence. He knew how strong Kimimaro was and had heard of Shinji and Neji's abilities, but he wasn't intimidated. Led by Iruka and Mizuki, the two classes took their places by the field. "Shinji! Shinji!" Shion bounced over and called out, all smiles. Shinji gave a wry look and turned away. Since she'd come to Konoha, Shion had been relentlessly cheerful. The matches began. The teams faced off one by one. Shinji's class lost several early matches. Aside from Shinji's and Neji's teams, most of their students came from civilian backgrounds and lacked significant combat capability. By contrast, Naruto and Sasuke's class was packed with Kekkei Genkai users, secret technique families, and Naruto himself, the Jinchuriki. Their overall strength outmatched most opponents. With the last person on the field knocked out, Iruka announced, "Shikamaru's team wins." Tenten sighed. "We lost another one." Neji frowned. If eliminations continued this way, only his team and Shinji's might remain. The other classes' teams were being whittled down one after another. It wouldn't be long before the big matchups decided the outcome. Mizuki's voice called the next pairing. Next match, Sasuke's team versus Shinji's team. Gasps and chatter rippled through the crowd. "Oh, did they draw each other? This is the main event." A showdown between two Uchiha prodigies. The students knew that while the other matches mattered, the teams with the four geniuses would be decisive. Tenten cheered, "Shinji, go." Neji nodded toward him. Shinji smiled and led Haku and Karin into the arena. On the other side, Sasuke waved at his teammates. "Naruto, Sakura, let's go." On the rooftop, Kakashi leaned against the water tank, his gaze sliding from his book to the field below. Among the two teams were his teacher's orphan and the only two remaining survivors of his close friend's clan. There were few in the village who felt truly close to him. These were among them. So he watched with unusual seriousness. In the advisory Elder Council chamber, eyes were fixed on the match as well. Even though Sasuke had lost before, the council still approved of his performance. There was nothing for Danzo to legitimately criticize. On the field, both sides formed the confrontation seal and took their stances. Shinji glanced at Naruto and Sakura and inwardly chuckled at their guarded expressions. Sasuke's eyes swept over Haku and Karin before he said to Shinji, flatly, "I'll win this match." With that, he launched himself like an arrow at Haku and Karin. His plan was straightforward: deal with Shinji's two teammates first, then rely on Naruto and Sakura to subdue Shinji. As he rushed in, he kept one eye on Shinji, planning a pincer strike after he had handled Haku and Karin. Haku and Karin exchanged a look, and both thought the same thing. They'd been told to approach Sasuke, so now was their chance to leave an impression. They didn't need to beat him. Just causing trouble would be enough to earn a second look and improve their chances of getting closer to him. Sasuke closed in, the Tomoe in his Sharingan apparent, a confident curl to his mouth. Seeing Haku and Karin's hesitation, he sneered inwardly. Pathetic rookies, and feinted with his left hand to mask a right-handed strike aimed at Karin. He planned to spring up on the feint, sweep with his leg, and finish Haku cleanly after dropping Karin. Karin's pause was tactical. She wasn't unprepared. She was gauging how much resistance to put up. Though her Mangekyo Sharingan wasn't activated, its insight still surpassed ordinary vision. Watching Sasuke's right shoulder press down, she correctly judged his true attack was coming from his right arm, in her blind spot. She decided to let his right arm strike her while grabbing his left, taking the hit and after that offering a token counterpunch. Haku thought similarly. If he grabbed Sasuke's right arm to shield Karin and then answered with a light punch, Sasuke would likely dodge the follow-up. So when Sasuke feinted left and struck with the right, both Karin and Haku moved together. Karin clamped onto Sasuke's left arm with her left hand, bracing to take the blow and throwing a casual punch. Haku seized Sasuke's right arm and delivered a palm strike. Two dull impacts echoed across the arena. For a heartbeat, the training ground dropped into stunned silence. Shinji, Naruto, Sakura, everyone froze. Heads turned, eyes widened. "Did I really see that?" someone whispered. "Sasuke got hit?" On the field, Sasuke was equally baffled. His left hand held by Karin, his right by Haku, both cheeks stung from blows. "What?" his mind raced. Haku and Karin stared at each other with panic. "How did this happen?" they both thought. Humiliation flickered across Sasuke's face. This wasn't a loss to a top prodigy like Kimimaro. It was being smacked in the face by two academy newcomers in front of everyone. Rage flared, and he wrenched free, swinging a heavy sweep with his right leg toward Haku. He intended to knock Haku down with the sweep, then punch Karin to regain his honor. Oh no, Haku thought, realizing their plan had gone awry. He braced to catch Sasuke's sweeping leg and take the follow-up punch, after which they would withdraw. Karin planned the same. After Sasuke's sweep, she would feint an attack at his supporting left leg, letting herself be knocked down so Sasuke would have no reason to look down on them. Both acted at once. Haku lunged and wrapped around Sasuke's sweeping right leg to hold it. Karin kicked Sasuke's supporting left leg to trip him. Another dull thud, and the arena was silent again. Haku, still holding Sasuke's right leg, blinked at Karin, utterly baffled. Karin looked back with the same innocent expression. They hadn't expected the other to react that way. Only Sasuke, face first in the dirt, lay utterly bewildered. "What just happened this time?" he muttered. Around the field, the crowd buzzed, unable to decide whether to laugh, gasp, or applaud. For a moment, the match had become something else entirely. Not a test of genius, but an unexpected, humiliating comedy of errors that left everyone reeling. Chapter 110. Blame Me. Please subscribe. After two attacks that should have succeeded inexplicably failed at Haku and Karin's hands, Sasuke hit the ground hard and felt his mind go blank. Haku and Karin looked as stunned as everyone else. They exchanged bewildered glances, neither sure what had just happened. Did Sasuke just slip? Maybe he's hurt? Haku and Karin just got lucky. The murmurs around the arena picked up again. Students pointed and whispered, some confused, some amazed, some secretly pleased. Sasuke's constant arrogance had never made him popular with everyone. From atop the teaching building, Danzo frowned. He had noticed the genuine surprise on Haku and Karin's faces and concluded that their stopping Sasuke hadn't been prearranged. That made Sasuke's repeated missteps all the more puzzling. Utatane Koharu and Homura Mitokado drew the same conclusion. Maybe it's because he hasn't fully recovered from his fight with Kimimaro, Koharu suggested. That would explain it, Mitokado agreed. They were experienced members of the advisory council, but without dojutsu, they couldn't see battlefield detail from that distance. Only the third Hokage, with his eye for ninjutsu, replayed Sasuke's two encounters in his head and felt that something wasn't right. Still, the recent match with Kimimaro was an obvious factor. He couldn't be sure about Sasuke's physical state, so he said nothing. On the field, Shinji had the clearest read on what had happened. Others assumed Sasuke had been off his game. Shinji knew better. It wasn't Sasuke's fault. Haku and Karin had outclassed him in speed, strength, even perception and prediction. If it had been any other pair, Sasuke's offense would not have been stopped so definitively. Not seeing an opponent's movements, failing to match their speed, and being unable to withstand their power, no amount of coincidence could excuse that. Shinji also knew he couldn't let Sasuke keep taking humiliations like this. Haku and Karin's true abilities couldn't be revealed yet. He walked over to Sasuke and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Sasuke, looks like you still haven't recovered." Sasuke, face bruised, hauled himself to his feet. Hearing Shinji, he immediately blamed his earlier fight with Kimimaro. I shouldn't have pushed myself against Kimimaro, he muttered, convinced. As a class match, even if it's unfair, I must play my part, Shinji said, then suddenly flickered in front of Sasuke. Sasuke, still groggy, swung a punch on instinct. Shinji easily sidestepped and struck an upward palm to Sasuke's chin, sending him airborne and out of bounds. He shook his head and called out, "You couldn't even block that? You're really not in shape." See, Sasuke was hurt. No wonder he was beaten, someone said. It's a shame. It's all down to Kimimaro now. Shinji's words gave everyone a neat explanation, so they accepted it. Sasuke, who had been flung out of the arena, slammed a fist against the ground in frustration. Damn it, if only I hadn't fought Kimimaro to exhaustion. Shinji moved on to deal with Naruto and Sakura, performed the reconciliation seal while Mizuki called the match result, and then led Haku and Karen off the field. Mizuki announced the next round, Neji's team versus Kimimaro's team. The atmosphere perked up immediately. All attention shifted to Kimimaro and Neji. Neither were showy. They glared at each other and launched into combat at once. Bang after bang, fists and feet collided across the training ground. Compared to Sasuke's flashy style, Neji's approach was calculated and efficient. He guarded the 1-meter gap in front of him, turning defense into offense. Kimimaro, powerful and fast, couldn't break Neji's gentle fist barrier, and the fight became a battle of attrition. Tenten and Lee didn't sit idle. Taking advantage of Neji holding Kimimaro, they took out Shion and Yakumo Kurama in succession, then leapt into the fight between Kimimaro and Neji. But the skirmish was beneath them. Their involvement actually forced Neji to divert support several times, briefly exposing weaknesses. It didn't last long. Tenten was soon knocked out of bounds, and Lee, after struggling, was also kicked away. That left only Neji and Kimimaro on the field. The audience watched the duel breathlessly. Hinata clasped her hands, whispering, "Neji ni-san." Kiba stared wide-eyed. "Are they even human?" Ino worried aloud, "Shikamaru, can our class win?" Shikamaru shrugged. "It's hard to say. If Neji keeps this up and drags things out, Kimimaro might win, but he'll burn too much chakra. Don't forget what happened to Sasuke." Ino nodded. "Their class also has Shinji." Sakura hurried to Sasuke's side. "Sasuke, is your face okay?" Sasuke tried to smile through the swelling. "I was careless. I should have dodged." "Can Kimimaro win?" Sakura asked. Sasuke grew serious. "Kimimaro must have been badly hurt in our fight earlier. It'll be tough for him to take 2 matches in a row, against Neji and then Shinji." Sakura panicked. "So our class will lose?" Sasuke sighed. "I shouldn't have pushed Kimimaro to a mutual knockout earlier." On the field, Kimimaro's speed and strength were greater than Neji's, but Neji's ironclad defense stymied him. Frustrated, Kimimaro stopped dodging and started meeting Neji's gentle fist in close quarters. Now, Neji seized what he thought was an opening and targeted Kimimaro's arm, shoulder blade, and lower abdomen with precise strikes to seal the chakra points. If he shut down any of those meridians, he'd win. Blows flew in a rapid exchange. In a matter of breaths, they'd traded more than a dozen strikes. Then Neji stumbled and fell. "What?" Disbelief rang in his voice. He'd sealed at least 3 major chakra points. By rights, Kimimaro shouldn't have been able to move chakra. Yet Kimimaro responded as if nothing had happened, landed a blow to Neji's solar plexus, and sent him out of bounds. Neji, unable to get up, peered at Kimimaro with his Byakugan. The 3 key points he had sealed were no longer blocked. My gentle fist failed. How? He thought. His formerly infallible technique had already faltered once today, against Shinji, and now again. Shinji, watching, realized what Kimimaro possessed, the corpse bone pulse. Before Neji's gentle fist could penetrate or take effect, Kimimaro formed an internal layer of bone membrane beneath his skin, blocking chakra flow. It was as if he wore armor made of bone over his meridians. Shinji recalled the battle between Kimimaro and Gaara from the original timeline. Kimimaro could break free of the sand because of his abnormal resilience. This corpse bone pulse explained that resilience. Previously, Shinji had regarded Kimimaro's tissue as an idea at best. Whether he would obtain it didn't matter. But now, after seeing the bone membrane firsthand, he genuinely wanted some of Kimimaro's tissue to study. After beating several more teams, Shinji's team finally faced Kimimaro's in the match, that would decide which class won the exam. Students and even some instructors crowded to watch. Shion called out, "Shinji, even though we're friends, I won't hold back." "Me neither," came other voices. Shinji drew a kunai from his pouch. Shion blinked and slipped behind Kimimaro, startled. Shinji wasn't trying to intimidate. Without a tool, he wasn't confident he could take any tissue from Kimimaro. The 6 combatants formed the confrontation seal and attacked. Shinji faced Kimimaro. Shion went after Haku, leaving the apparently weaker Karin to Yakumo Kurama. Everyone's eyes stayed on Shinji and Kimimaro, the 2 geniuses. Kimimaro felt something off almost at once. Shinji's style was practical, with a hint of guile, and his moves seemed to anticipate Kimimaro's thoughts. Strikes were silently neutralized, attacks read and countered. Shinji's speed and power exceeded Sasuke and Neji, and with a kunai in hand, he became a much bigger threat. Kimimaro had to take him seriously. Then the tide changed rapidly. Karin forced Yakumo Kurama out of the ring, and Haku pushed Shion out moments later. 2 teammates gone, Kimimaro remained outwardly indifferent. Shinji, though, allowed a small smile. He glanced briefly at Haku, tossed the kunai into the air, formed hand seals, and shouted, "Fire release! Great fireball technique!" At nearly the same time, Haku completed his seals. Water release, water bullet. Fire and water struck Kimimaro together. Steam hissed up, thick and blinding, shrouding the arena. In that steaming mist, Haku and Karin lunged, and muffled thuds followed as they tangled with Kimimaro. Seizing the chance, Shinji caught the kunai he had thrown. He flashed forward, and the blade bit along Kimimaro's arm, just a tiny scraping, barely noticeable, shaving off a sliver of flesh. At the same moment, the 2 grappled and rolled out of bounds together. The mist dispersed. Everyone saw Shinji and Kimimaro fall out of the ring, while Haku and Karin remained standing inside. For an instant, no one moved. Then a voice somewhere shouted, "We won!" The shout unleashed the crowd. The outcome of the exam was decided, and the suspense evaporated. On the sidelines, Sasuke was racked with guilt. "It's my fault," he said to himself. "I must have hurt Kimimaro earlier. I made him go into this match wounded, and that's why he lost." 2 chapters in 1. A new week is coming. Please consider recommendation tickets and monthly passes. Thank you, everyone. And thanks to the students who rewarded this week. Much appreciated. Chapter 111. Eye-opening experience. Shinji and Kimimaro rose quickly to their feet. Shinji glanced at the nearly healed cut on Kimimaro's arm and said apologetically, "Sorry, I hurt you." "It's nothing." Kimimaro shrugged it off indifferently. The wound was trivial. His body would close it on its own in a little while. Victory or defeat meant little to him, and without another word he turned and left. Shinji offered a faint smile and motioned for Haku and Karin, who were still on the field, to return to their class. During the confusion of the dispersing mist he'd created, Shinji had used the cover to slip a kunai, one with a tiny scrap of Kimimaro's flesh still stuck to it, back into his ninja pouch without anyone noticing. It was precisely Kimimaro's indifference to minor injuries that made him vulnerable. Otherwise, even Shinji would have found it hard to make an impression. Their classmates gathered around to congratulate Shinji. Neji came up to him, eyes serious. "I lost," he said. Shinji patted Neji on the shoulder casually. "It's only a final exam. Don't take it too hard." Neji shook his head. "No, even if it's just an exam, I saw my shortcomings clearly. You, without even activating your Sharingan, beat Sasuke and Kimimaro. All I got was defeat. That proves I'm not as good as you." Shinji thought inwardly. Counting the pair I control, I effectively have 2 pairs of Mangekyo Sharingan. It felt like an unfair advantage, but he kept that to himself. Neji's voice hardened. "I won't just give up. Next time, I'll be stronger." Shinji merely replied with a cool, "I look forward to it." On the academy rooftop, Kakashi snapped his Icha book shut, leapt off, and walked away without looking back. The final exam had reached a point where there was nothing more for him to watch. The displays by prodigies like Sasuke, Shinji, Kimimaro, and Neji had been impressive. At that age, he might have matched them. But in Kakashi's view, there was a deeper failure. None of them had truly passed. The Ninja Academy's final exam was meant to evaluate teamwork by pitting students in 3-person teams. Yet every standout on the field had treated teammates as expendable tools or outright burdens. If Kakashi had been grading, he would have failed them all. Inside the teaching building, The third Hokage and the advisory elders were already gone. The academy had been created in part to curb the power of noble clans by admitting civilian shinobi, but the village leadership still recognized a harsh reality. Geniuses determined the course of war. One Minato Namikaze could change the outcome for hundreds of ordinary shinobi. One Hanzo had kept the hidden rain alive despite overwhelming odds. No amount of talk about the will of fire could erase that fact. So when the matches involving a few true geniuses wrapped up, the village elders naturally turned their attention elsewhere. Shinji felt the killing intent aimed at him from a distance and glanced toward the teaching building. He could perceive it not only because of his ability to sense such things, but because Danzo made no attempt to conceal that intent. Perhaps Danzo saw no point in hiding a desire to eliminate an Uchiha remnant. By afternoon, the academy's final exam ended. As everyone suspected, with Sasuke's class defeated, there was no one left to stop Shinji's team. After several rounds, Shinji's class emerged the overall winners. Every student in the class had their semester grade raised by 1 rank, and the 3 members of Shinji's team received the academy's highest S grade for the term. After school, Tenten arranged a celebratory barbecue for both teams. With a generous classmate picking up the tab, Shinji didn't refuse. On the way to the restaurant, they ran into Sasuke and Shion, who were heading the same way, and the groups joined. Everyone was exhausted and starving after a long day of matches. When the first platters of meat and fruit arrived, conversation fell away. Everyone dug in. Only after their plates were full did people begin to talk. Shikamaru, picking idly at his teeth with a toothpick, sighed, "Ugh, this holiday's going to be rough." Kiba asked, "Why?" The others looked to Shikamaru for the answer. "Think about it," he said. "This exam turned into a showcase for Shinji and a few others. The rest of us didn't do well. Do you think we'll get an easy time at home?" Kiba's shoulders hunched at the thought of his hot-tempered mother and sister. Hinata's expression fell. As the eldest daughter of the Hyuga main family, her performance had been far below Neji's from the Branch family, and some civilians had even outshone her. The pressure from her household was going to be enormous. Many students from noble clans and secret technique families in the private room grew dejected at Shikamaru's words. It was easy to imagine their holidays filled with harsh training from family elders. Sasuke fell silent for a moment, thinking, if father were alive, would he be pleased or disappointed with today? Then he looked at Shinji, who was still happily focused on the grill, and asked, "Shinji, any plans for the holiday?" Neji, beside him, put down his chopsticks and watched Shinji too. Shinji answered lightly, "Me? Not really. No fixed plans." Sasuke jumped on the chance. "Then train with us. We're both Uchiha. I can show you how I activate my Sharingan." "No, thanks." Shinji shook his head. He had no interest in hearing Sasuke's activation method, and his own schedule was already full, analyzing the cell tissue he'd taken from Kimimaro and preparing for the challenge to obtain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He cast a subtle glance at Karen beside him. From how the day had gone, Karen's Mangekyo eyes seemed to have recovered a good deal. Chapter 112, The Kaleidoscope of Rediscovering the Light. Please subscribe. When Shinji refused his suggestion, Sasuke looked a little put out. "Shinji, are you still obsessed with medical ninjutsu? What good is that? The strongest tool of the Uchiha is our Sharingan." He flipped his Sharingan open as he spoke, his ink-dark eyes bleeding scarlet. Shinji glanced at the awakened eye, then smiled and shook his head. "I'm just a little interested in medical ninjutsu." Sasuke scoffed. "Why waste time on that dull stuff? If you worked harder, you might even catch up to me." Naruto, still chewing on roasted meat, frowned. "Sasuke, weren't we the ones who lost today?" Sasuke sputtered, his face darkening at the retort. Sakura hurried to smooth things over. "Naruto, you big idiot. Sasuke means that if Shinji worked hard, he might learn to awaken his Sharingan the same way." Naruto muttered, "The Sharingan isn't so great anyway." Sasuke opened his eyes and still got beaten today. Sakura yanked Naruto by the ear and dragged him aside. With the interruption, Sasuke could only pout. Neji, standing nearby, seemed puzzled that Shinji hadn't sparred with Sasuke, but he stayed reserved and watched in silence. After the small scene broke up, everyone left to make plans for the upcoming holiday, some to deal with family, others to arrange training. Shinji, meanwhile, began thinking about his next move. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Karen was implanted with white Zetsu cells. Her body's fusion period was almost over. Soon she'd reach a stable phase. During that unstable fusion, Shinji had observed that Karen's sage-enhanced body, augmented by the white Zetsu cells, could help reactivate a blind Mangekyo. He decided to infiltrate Karen's apartment that night to confirm whether her Mangekyo had recovered, and based on what he found, schedule the next eye transplant. Night. Click. When the clock's hour hand hit 12, Shinji pulled on an Akatsuki cloak, fitted his mask, and slipped out of the apartment. He entered Karen's place shortly after. Because he'd already contacted her through Jiva Space, Karen wasn't surprised to see him. She let him in at once. Before he could ask a question, Karen practically bounced forward. "Lord, my right eye can see today." "Really?" Shinji's spirits lifted. Karen removed her goggles. "Yes, when I woke up this morning, my right eye could see faint shapes, and by noon it was getting clearer and clearer." Shinji leaned in and studied her right eye. Where it had been pale before, the iris was now the normal ink black. He waved his hand slowly in front of her face. "Can you see that clearly?" "Yes," Karen nodded emphatically. Shinji asked, "How does it compare to your left eye?" Karen covered her left eye, peered for a moment, then covered her right and compared. "My left eye still sees better." Shinji said. "That's normal. A Mangekyo's clarity is tied to the dojutsu. Your right eye has only just come back. Its dojutsu won't be as developed as your left yet." He activated his own Mangekyo and tried to coax Karen's right eye open with genjutsu. As before, Karen's left eye responded quickly. The pupil darkened, turned scarlet, 3 tomei formed and swirled into a complex pattern. The right eye at first resisted. Shinji intensified the dojutsu stimulation. Slowly, the right iris darkened, the scarlet flushed in, and 3 tomei emerged. Under his influence, they spun, gathered, and finally locked into the same pattern as the left. Shinji staggered back 2 steps and let out a long breath. Karen, who had already broken her own genjutsu with her abilities, rushed forward to steady him. "Lord, are you all right?" He bowed his head and, once the dizziness eased, shook his head at her. "I'm fine." There was no doubt. Restoring sight to Mangekyo was akin to rebirth, and the process demanded a tremendous amount of dojutsu. It was fortunate Shinji himself possessed a Mangekyo. Anyone else would likely have been helpless. Even so, activating Karen's right eye had drained him. His vision swam. "My Mangekyo is about to give out," he admitted. Despite the warning, he wasn't worried. Karen regaining vision in her right eye brought them one step closer to an eternal Mangekyo. After steadying himself, he asked, "What eye techniques does your right eye hold?" Karen concentrated a moment. "Susanoo, too. But unlike the left eye, which strengthens Susanoo's power, the right eye reduces Susanoo's chakra consumption." Shinji was taken aback, not because of the technique, but because of the choice the original Mangekyo owner had made. Normally, if forced to sacrifice one eye, preserving the right eye, the one that lowers Susanoo's consumption, would be the smarter move. The left eye, which increases Susanoo's power, was useful, but less practical without the efficiency boost from the other. Yet the previous owner had sacrificed the right and kept the left. He muttered under his breath, amused and impressed. As expected of an Uchiha. Shinji used genjutsu to gently close Karen's Mangekyo lids, then said, "Tomorrow night, I'll arrange another eye transplant for you." Karen blinked in surprise. "Lord, you're going to help me get my eyes back?" Shinji felt a little awkward. "Don't worry, I'll return your original eyes intact. Tomorrow's surgery is to give you another pair of Mangekyo Sharingan." "You have another pair of Mangekyo?" Karen's eyes widened. After her own implantation, she had learned how rare and valued Mangekyo were, how much even a 2-tomo Sharingan like Sasuke's could change a person's standing in the village. The idea that the leader had an extra pair of Mangekyo was astonishing. Second update. Please recommend, vote, and cast your monthly votes. It's the end of the month, so if you still have tickets, don't forget to vote. Thank you. Chapter 113, Restoration or Rebirth. After leaving Karen's apartment, Shinji began preparing for the upcoming eye transplant. He slipped to the Death Forest and, in a hidden rock cave, readjusted the Mangekyo Sharingan he carried, replacing his grandmother Uchiha Chiri's right eye, which held the kaleidoscope eye technique Jibi. He set Chiri's Mangekyo into a nutrient tank and sat for a long time thinking. He was currently using Uchiha Fugaku's Mangekyo and therefore had the two techniques Amaterasu and Izanagi. That meant that until Karen fully restored his grandmother's Mangekyo, he couldn't use Jibi to reach out to others. Still, the wait shouldn't be long. With Karen's sage body now stable and powerful, restoring a single Mangekyo shouldn't take more than a week at most. Once Karen restores Chiri's Mangekyo, I can perform dojutsu fusion directly with the Susanoo lantern, he thought, feeling a small thrill. At the same time, he forced himself to stay calm. The closer he got to such a pivotal moment, the more careful he had to be. He considered the fusion process. Without the Susanoo lantern, even if he had a matched pair of Mangekyo from a blood relative, he'd have to rely on surgical transplantation to fuse them. Transplants required long recovery and stabilization. In the original timeline, Sasuke had to recuperate for weeks in a secret base arranged by Obito after receiving Itachi's Mangekyo. Shinji couldn't pin down an exact time frame, only that it would likely be weeks to a month. During that fusion period, the eyes couldn't be used, something impossible to hide while living openly in Konoha. Even with the Susanoo lantern, he couldn't be certain his body wouldn't suffer complications. He pulled another set of eyes from their nutrient tank and stared at them. The pair of completely damaged Mangekyo were slightly yellowed in the fluid, their dojutsu utterly gone. When he had last activated a Mangekyo he'd restored for Karen, he'd felt something strange, as if the eye had not simply been repaired, but reborn. For an instant, the restored Mangekyo had felt intimately connected to Karen, as though it truly belonged to her. Could eyes restored through Karen develop a bloodline connection to her? The thought nagged at him. In the case of Karen's current eyes, the left Mangekyo had never lost its dojutsu. Its constant activity quickly masked any anomaly in the right eye. Resonance between the pair eliminated the odd feeling, and the sense of closeness faded until both eyes felt consistent. But what if both eyes were completely blind and Karen restored them both? Would the bloodline link created during restoration persist? If so, whose Mangekyo would they ultimately be, those of the original owner or Karen's? The implications were enormous. If newly restored Mangekyo were considered Karen's, then she could, in effect, possess a pair of eternal Mangekyo Sharingan tied to her bloodline. Possession here didn't mean simply transplanting eternal eyes onto Karen. It meant the eyes themselves would be connected to her lineage and thus retain the ability to continue evolving. Combine that with her potent sage body and her Uzumaki Senju ancestry, and theoretically, she might have potential to awaken the Rinnegan. For now, it was only a hypothesis, intriguing but unproven. The next morning, Shinji was at the medical team's laboratory as usual. He ran a battery of tests on Kimimura's cells, cataloging each result carefully. Later, he and Inaho Kaoru were sent to Konoha Hospital to treat that day's injured. If he weren't still a Ninja Academy student, the medical team would have already considered him a full medical 9. He moved and worked like one. He was busy until evening, exhausted when he finally stepped out of the hospital gate. Inaho stretched and complained, "It's good being young. I'm completely drained after a day like this." "You're only in your 20s, Shinji said with a wry smile, then waved goodbye. Working at the front line, directly treating patients, was hard but invaluable. It let him see firsthand how medical ninjutsu affected different wounds and deepened his understanding of the art. He didn't mind being pressed into service. On the walk home, the village hummed around him. He watched Rock Lee running laps in the evening light, sweat soaking his training clothes. He saw Neji practicing gentle fist with ninja tools, Tenten assisting. Naruto, as usual, was a nuisance, spray painting the Hokage rock and being chased by Iruka across the village. The holidays had begun. Shinji stopped at a roadside stall, ate, and strolled back to his apartment. Time slipped by. Near midnight, he closed the medical book he'd been studying, pulled on the Akatsuki cloak and mask, and left in a blur. A short while later, he was on Karen's balcony. Karen welcomed him in without nervousness. This wasn't the first time. She watched with interest as he unpacked surgical instruments and sterilized them with practiced hands. When the pre-op preparations were complete, Shinji said, "The Mangekyo I'm transplanting this time is like the blind one already in your socket, one of the pair, is also blind. I know, Karen replied, nodding softly. When she heard the leader would give her another pair of Mangekyo, she had understood at once that he needed her to restore them again. Shinji produced Chiri's Mangekyo and, handing it to her with a quiet warning, said, "This is important. You must be careful." "Of course," Karen answered, her expression turning serious. He told her to lie down and began the transplant. Once more, he felt the difference between Karen and ordinary patients. Wounds that required meticulous control on others refused to behave on her. Bleeding stopped almost instantly, and incisions began to mend before he'd finished suturing. If he moved too slowly, the tissue would start healing, and he might not be able to complete the operation properly. He worked deliberately, mindful of the peculiar speed of Karen's regeneration and the strange possibilities her abilities implied. Chapter 114. Reward. Please subscribe. After finishing the eye transplant, Shinji examined the removed Mangekyo carefully. Both eyeballs shone with a vibrant luster, completely unlike before. Not only has its sight been restored, but its dojutsu appears to have been fully replenished, he thought. He sighed softly and placed the Mangekyo into a specialized nutrient jar. The solution inside had been formulated by him using the medical team's latest research. Though extremely expensive, it maximized the organ's vitality. With regular changes, the organ could be preserved long-term. After storing the removed eyes, Shinji turned to Karen's empty sockets and asked, "How do you feel?" Karen blinked, still uncomfortable. "I'm a little unaccustomed to it. You'll adjust soon." He paused, then instructed, "The left eye was blind before the transplant, so focus on taking care of your left eye this time." "Yes," Karen nodded repeatedly. Shinji watched her for a moment, then added, "Do not try to activate the Sharingan, and don't fight for a while. Wait until this Mangekyo is fully recovered." Feeling the leader's concern for the Mangekyo, Karen promised, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of this Mangekyo Sharingan. I'll come back tomorrow night." Having said that, Shinji left Karen's apartment. In the days that followed, he divided his time between the medical team's laboratory, continuing research on Kimimara's cells, and treating the injured at Konoha Hospital. In the evenings, he closed his door and studied medical ninjutsu texts. Late at night, he visited Karen's apartment to check on the Mangekyo's recovery. The holiday felt busy but fulfilling. Inaho Kaoru noticed how single-mindedly Shinji had thrown himself into medical research and, concerned, sought him out during her break. "I checked the archives," she told him. "The rate of awakening the Sharingan within the Uchiha is actually quite low. On average, only 1 or 2 out of 10 awaken it." Shinji blinked. So, even if you haven't awakened it yet, that's normal. You don't need to be so hard on yourself." She chose her words. "You're still young. There's a good chance you'll awaken the Sharingan." He smiled wryly. "What about me?" Inaho ruffled his hair. "Stop pretending with me. You're Uchiha. Of course you care about the Sharingan." Your talent is obvious. I believe you'll awaken it, just like Uchiha Sasuke, so stop hiding away in the lab and hospital every day. You're excellent. You don't need to avoid things." "Thanks for the encouragement." Shinji thought about it and admitted she was right. His behavior must look odd. A talented Uchiha spending all his time on medical research instead of trying every method to awaken the Sharingan. He suspected people might think he was disheartened and using medical work as an escape. He told himself to be more careful. Back in the lab, Shinji inspected the culture dishes on the bench and frowned. After several days of experiments, he found that while Kimimara's cells weren't as domineering as the first Hokage's, they displayed strong rejection characteristics. He'd tried fusing Kimimara's tissue with his own, with Karen's, even with white Zetsu's, but every experiment failed. Kimimara's tissue behaved like a poison, incompatible with ordinary human tissue. He tapped the bench and muttered, "I wonder if Hyuga tissue could fuse with Kimimara's." He didn't have any Hyuga tissue on hand, so he hadn't tested it. Now, with every other human tissue rejecting Kimimara's, Shinji returned to his old idea of fusing the Hyuga's sage eye with the Kaguya body. He resolved to get some of Neji's tissue, if possible, Hinata's as well. He remembered Otsutsuki Toneri saying that both Hinata and Hanabi had pure Byakugan. That was why Toneri took Hanabi's eyes to forge a Tenseigen and chose Hinata as his bride. Though Shinji didn't know on what basis Toneri judged their Byakugan purer than other Hyuga members, Toneri's success with Hanabi's eyes proved his point. Hanabi was still young and inaccessible, so Shinji set his sights on Hinata instead. 2 more days passed, 7 days since the eye transplant. Late that night, Shinji slipped into Karen's apartment again. When Karen saw him, she beamed. "Leader, my left eye! Today I can actually see!" Shinji froze, then a look of ecstatic relief crossed his face. "Yesterday you could only perceive vague light and shadow, right? How can you see clearly today?" Karen shook her head. "I don't know. This afternoon I just suddenly could see." "Very good." Shinji clenched his fist inside his sleeve. His efforts were finally paying off. Karen was glad too. She could tell the leader cared deeply about the Mangekyo, and she felt she had helped. Shinji examined her more closely. Her left eye had changed from a pale, lifeless color to a glossy, ink-dark hue. Still, he resisted activating it. His own Mangekyo's dojutsu reserves were already severely depleted, and he had to avoid further consumption. Besides, if he activated it now, Karen would immediately learn the 2 eye techniques contained in the Mangekyo. After a moment of thought, he said, "We'll perform the procedure tomorrow night." Second update delivered. It's the last day of the month, so classmates with monthly votes, don't forget to vote, or your votes will be wasted tomorrow. Chapter 115. Invite. Your Highness, you've been away from the land of demons for too long. The ninja school in Konoha is on break. You should take this chance to return home and calm the people, one attendant urged. "Yes, Your Highness, the Yellow Springs sect has been behaving suspiciously lately. The country needs you," another added. "The sentry posts in the sealing grounds have reported suspicious figures lurking nearby. This concerns the safety of the land of demons. Please reconsider," a third pleaded. The attendants prostrated themselves around Shion. She pouted and stamped her foot. "I don't want to go back." Seeing her resistance, one attendant tried a gentler tack. "It's only to handle some domestic affairs. Once it's settled, you can go right back to the ninja school and continue your studies." "Really?" Shion brightened. They all nodded eagerly. "Of course. Your studies at the ninja school in Konoha are also for the safety of the land of demons." Shion mulled it over, then asked, "Can I invite my friends to come with me?" "Yes, you can. Yes, you can." The attendants were relieved. If inviting a few guests would coax her to return, they would happily arrange it. Shion beamed. "All right, I promise." She walked out, deciding to invite Shinji first. But as she moved through the streets, she hesitated. Shinji's personality made her doubt he'd accept. He'll probably complain it's too far, she thought. I'll invite the others first. Once everyone agrees, then I'll ask him. She went to Yakumo Kurama's house. After hearing the invitation, Yakumo bowed politely. "My health may not endure such a long trip. I'm afraid I must decline." At Kimimara's apartment, he frowned and said flatly, "Land of demons? No interest." Shion stormed off, fuming. "They're all so disloyal. I refuse to believe no one will accept my invitation." She tried Sasuke next. He shook his head. "I have to train. No time." Tenten spread her hands helplessly. "I'd love to travel, really, but I promised to help Neji train." At Neji's place, he was practicing Gentle Fist. "Thanks for the offer," he said without stopping, "but my vacation is already fully booked." Suppressing his own excitement, Shinji waited another day. By that evening, he couldn't wait any longer. Under cover of dusk, he slipped into Karen's apartment where the lights were still dim. "Karen," he said quietly as he led her into the room. "Lord," Karen replied, surprised, "my left eye feels so much clearer today. I can't tell the difference between it and my right eye anymore." "So soon?" Shinji clicked his tongue softly. He'd known that if an eye couldn't be restored, no amount of transplanting would fix it. But if the yang-release chakra met the requirement, recovery could be surprisingly quick. He had used the Susanoo lamp to control his grandmother, Uchiha Chiri's Mangekyo Sharingan before. Back then, her blind left eye had been utterly inactive. Now, after another check, Karen's vision had indeed returned to normal. Shinji set 2 nutrient jars on the table in front of her. One jar contains your original eye. The other contains the Mangekyo Sharingan that was transplanted into you before. You can choose, switch back to your own eyes, or keep using the Mangekyo. Karen's eyes widened. "You mean?" "If you want," Shinji said, "I can lend you this Mangekyo." Originally, he'd intended to have Karen test whether the fully damaged Mangekyo could be restored. But if she put on a wholly ruined Mangekyo and went blind, that would be a disaster, especially now when he was at a critical stage in fusing the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Lending a recovered Mangekyo to Karen for daily use was reasonable. She had already helped restore 2 partially damaged Mangekyo. Shinji had weighed the options carefully. Karen stared at the jars. She had wanted her original eyes back, but the sudden choice made her hesitate. She remembered the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan and what it could do. Wearing those eyes would give her the strength to protect herself and her mother. After a long moment, she asked cautiously, "Lord, if I use it, will it affect you?" Shinji chuckled and shook his head. He hadn't expected Karen to worry about him in a moment like this. She pointed at the jar with the Mangekyo. "Then please put these on me." "All right, get ready. I'm starting the procedure." Karen lay down obediently. Shinji completed the pre-op checks and, already familiar with the surgery, worked quickly. In less than 5 minutes, he had finished the transplant and retrieved his grandmother Uchiha Chiri's Mangekyo. Even after only a week, the eyes were vastly different from before. The left eye had regained sight, and the right eye, previously faint, was now dark and lustrous, glowing with renewed power. "It looks like even the Dojutsu has fully recovered," Shinji murmured. No wonder Obito, with only 1 Mangekyo, could use Kamui like a regular C-rank ninjutsu. White Zetsu cells are truly powerful. He placed his grandmother's Mangekyo into a nutrient jar with careful hands, then tidied his tools. "Your original eyes will stay with me for now," he told Karen. "They might still be useful later." Karen bowed quickly. "I'm sorry for the trouble." Shinji could have used Genjutsu to help Karen activate the Sharingan immediately, but he hesitated. With Karen's current sage body, keeping the Sharingan constantly active wouldn't overly strain her the way it did Kakashi, but the crimson eyes were conspicuous. Even hidden under dark goggles, it wouldn't be entirely safe. More importantly, he was in a hurry to fuse the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and didn't want any potential complications. First update delivered. Only 2 hours left this month. Students with monthly votes, remember to cast them. Otherwise, they'll be wasted after midnight. Chapter 116, Fusion. Please subscribe. After leaving Karen's apartment, Shinji ducked into a hidden alley to change out of his Akatsuki red cloud cloak and mask. Pretending to be out for a morning run, he slipped into the forest of death. He made his way to the familiar cave he used to visit and checked it thoroughly. Satisfied that no one else had been there, he eagerly retrieved the nutrient vat holding grandmother Uchiha Chiri's Mangekyo. He stared at the eyes suspended in the solution. "I've been waiting for this day," he murmured. He had gone to great lengths to obtain the eternal Mangekyo, even risking a break-in at Danzo's root base. Tonight, all that effort finally felt worth it. All the danger and hardship from before shrank away. Steeling himself, Shinji lifted Chiri's Mangekyo from the nutrient solution and set it in his palm. He activated Susanoo and Susanoo Lamp, removing the Uchiha Fugaku Mangekyo he'd been using and replacing them with Chiri's. Instantly, a wave of intimacy flooded him. It was the bond of blood. When fusing the Mangekyo of a close relative, there was no contest of strength, no danger of dojutsu rejection. With that in mind, he concentrated and began to awaken the left eye that Karen had restored. As a stream of Mangekyo chakra poured into his previously blind left eye, it synchronized with his right. The sclera darkened to crimson, 3 tomo spun into being, then converged into a 3-petaled pattern like a flower. It worked, he breathed. Information flooded his mind. He paused, stunned, then whispered, "No wonder grandmother gave up her left eye, so that's what Magatsu does." The details about Magatsu came at once. Its effect depended on Niobe. Niobe established connections between people. Magatsu took it further. It looted chakra from everyone linked through Niobe. In other words, if he activated Magatsu now, he could siphon chakra remotely from anyone within Niobe's sensing range, people like Haku and Karen, drawing their chakra into his own body. One is information transmission, the other is energy transfer. Together. He trailed off, trying to find words for the magnitude. If he used Niobe to link 7 people in battle, he'd effectively multiply his chakra pool by 1 plus 7. If one of those linked was a Jinchuriki or a chakra reservoir, his supply would approach limitless. Plundering chakra over distance would suffer losses, but even with inefficiency, the Niobe Magatsu combo was terrifyingly powerful. He sighed. If grandmother hadn't sacrificed her left eye, maybe she could have led the Uchiha down another path. Without Niobe, Magatsu was rootless. Without Magatsu, Niobe was just a communication tool. Only together could they be fully realized. Putting the implications aside for a moment, Shinji moved on to the main event. Even the most advanced eye techniques required a stable dojutsu, and the key here was the eternal Mangekyo. He felt intuitively certain that if he used Susanoo lamp to fuse his and his grandmother's Mangekyo, Susanoo lamp's power would grow, and Niobe and Magatsu might be strengthened as well. He reactivated Susanoo lamp and began the fusion. Instantly, the two pairs of eye sockets on his Susanoo converged. The giant guardian roared. The sound rattled the cave and sent loose stones tumbling from the walls. A wave of dizziness hit Shinji. His vision went black. He couldn't see, though he didn't panic, because he could feel Susanoo's presence and knew his eyes still worked. The blindness was temporary. Still, unease settled in as the darkness lingered. After a long moment, light returned. He blinked and looked around. The yellow Susanoo, the dim cave, everything reappeared. Did it succeed? Nervous, he produced the mirror he'd brought and examined the Susanoo closely. The second pair of eye sockets was empty. In the first pair, two sets of eyes had been forced together, forming a bizarre double pupil that gave off an unsettling, unnatural impression. Even with Susanoo lamp, fusing two Mangekyos takes time, he noted. He checked his own eyes. His Mangekyo patterns were normal. The strange double pupils were confined to Susanoo. That meant the fusion process was happening inside Susanoo and hadn't affected his body. Relieved, he dispelled Susanoo. The fused dojutsu sensation in his body persisted. Perfect, he said with a small grin. No surgery, no recovery time. The fusion had happened quietly, without leaving traces. Packing his things, he headed for the cave entrance. Just as he reached it, his eyes pulsed, and a surge of yin-release chakra burst from his body so intensely it seemed almost visible in the air. The agitation in his eyes subsided slowly, and when it did, he felt his dojutsu grow stronger, a substantial jump. He felt both surprised and elated. The increase was so marked that if it happened a few more times, he could hardly predict how powerful his eyes would become. He also felt a prick of worry. That sudden agitation could have revealed his Mangekyo to anyone nearby. Still, for now, he held the new power in his hands and knew he'd taken a decisive step forward. Chapter 117, Escort. It seems Obito had a reason for hiding Sasuke in a secret base to fuse the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Shinji leaned against the cave wall and sighed. The tremor in his eyes a little while ago had been a normal reaction to the fusion process. Not even the Susanoo lamp could completely prevent it. It only helped him cope. Every flare of unrest meant the two sets of eyes were one step closer to becoming one. The most direct cause of that agitation was a dramatic increase in his dojutsu. Shinji stroked his chin, thinking. In his experience, whether it was Sasuke fusing the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan or Otsutsuki Toneri fusing the Tenseigan, there was always a distinct fusion period. His Susanoo lamp helped with the temporary blindness during fusion, but it couldn't hide the abnormal symptoms that might appear. The best option was to leave the village for a while. Konoha had far too many sensory ninja. If his eyes flared up and yin-release chakra leaked while he was among them, it would attract unwanted attention. But how can I leave the village? He wondered. The normal way for a Konoha shinobi to go out was on a mission or a commission, but he was still an academy student and couldn't take missions. Hiding in his apartment was no better. The fusion could last weeks or even a month, and staying cooped up would be suspicious too. His eye problem had suddenly become a potentially dangerous one. After sneaking out of the death forest, he worried his eyes would act up again, so he didn't wander around the village and went straight back to his apartment. When he reached his hallway, he froze. A dark shape was crouched in front of his door. "Shion," Shinji blurted, surprised. "What are you doing squatting outside my place this late?" Shion lifted her head from where it was buried in her arms and looked at him with an injured expression. Shinji stepped forward. "What's wrong?" She avoided his gaze and whispered, "I want to invite you to be a guest in the land of demons." "To the land of demons?" Shinji's eyes lit up. Okay, I'm so presumptuous. I'm sorry. Shion, crestfallen, rose, bowed, and started to walk away like a ghost. Then she stopped, turned her head in a strangely stiff way, and stared at him. What did you just say? I said okay. The Land of Demons sounds great. I've always wanted to see it. When do we leave? Now. Shion, who'd been holding herself together, suddenly burst into loud, happy sobs and flung herself into Shinji's arms. I knew it. I knew it. You're the only one who wouldn't refuse me. Shinji scratched her head like she was a pet. What on earth is wrong with you? Through her tears, she told him how she'd gone door to door all day, inviting people to accompany her to the Land of Demons, but no one agreed. They wouldn't go with me, she sniffled. Those were perfect companions to avoid, Shinji thought privately, but he said aloud, those people are awful. He comforted her for a while. When he finally asked, so when are we leaving? Shion, who hadn't planned to hurry, suddenly brightened. She waved one arm grandly. We leave tomorrow. Then I'll go pack, Shinji said, taking out his key and opening the door. Before Shion could respond, he shut it with a decisive clank. Outside, Shion froze, still full of grievances she'd wanted to spill, but seeing Shinji so eager, she couldn't help smiling through her tears. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I didn't expect Shinji to like the Land of Demons so much. He really is my good friend. Not long after, the third Hokage received a notice. The priestess of the Land of Demons would be returning, and the Land of Demons requested Konoha ninja to escort her. The list of accompanying personnel included Uchiha Shinji, which made the Hokage frown. Iruka, who had brought the notice, stepped forward to explain. Shion and Shinji are friends from the academy, Iruka said. Shion invited Shinji to be a guest in the Land of Demons, and he accepted, so his name's on the roster. The third Hokage regarded the list thoughtfully. Having a Konoha shinobi who was personally friendly with the priestess could be beneficial. It was just that Shinji's Uchiha identity made the situation a bit sensitive. If it had been anyone else, he would have raised no objections. Seeing the Hokage ruminate, Iruka asked, Hokage-sama, is there something wrong? No, the third Hokage replied. Issue the travel permit. Yes, I'll take care of it right away. After Iruka left, the third Hokage summoned an Angbu officer. Have Asuma stand by. He'll escort the priestess back to the Land of Demons tomorrow. The investigation into the attack on the priestess had eventually pointed to a rogue organization known as the Yellow Springs sect operating near the Land of Demons. It wasn't well known. Reportedly, only its leader was at Jonin level, while the rest were Chonin or Ginin. Asuma's team would be more than sufficient, and it would give the priestess a chance to witness Asuma's strength and help him build connections. Early the next morning, Shinji slung his backpack over one shoulder and headed for the Land of Demons residence. Before he even reached the entrance, he heard Shion calling, Shinji, over here! He turned and saw her in the ceremonial robes of a priestess, waving. Walking up to her, he asked, When do we leave? His eyes had flared up again just before he left the apartment that morning. The dojutsu surge and chakra flow had reminded him he needed to leave the village as soon as possible. Shion smiled. We've been ready for a while, just waiting for the escorting ninja. Escorting ninja? Shinji repeated, puzzled. A Land of Demons guard standing beside her answered, To ensure the journey goes smoothly, we hired ninja from Konoha. First update delivered. On the 1st of December, please give me your monthly votes. Chapter 118. I've changed my mind. Shinji was left speechless, but he understood why the Land of Demons had acted as it did. The priestess had come to Konoha for refuge after being attacked under mysterious circumstances. It was only sensible for them to hire Konoha shinobi as escorts for her protection. Footsteps sounded behind him. He turned and saw Asuma striding forward, flanked by two Konoha ninja. Great, Shinji thought. This was going to be a headache. Asuma, a seasoned jonin, stepped up in front of the group. He appraised Shinji quickly, then addressed Shion. Priestess, I'm Asuma Sarutobi, the jonin in charge of this mission. One of the Land of Demons guards leaned close to Shion and whispered, Mr. Asuma is the third Hokage's second son. Shion bowed politely in return. At that moment, a crowd arrived outside the Land of Demons residence, Shion's classmates who had refused her invitation just yesterday. They'd been reluctant to visit the Land of Demons, but coming to see her off was acceptable. so they'd come this morning. When they saw Shinji among Shion's party, a backpack slung over his shoulder, Sasuke's eyes went wide. "Shinji, what are you doing?" he asked. Shion planted her hands on her hips like a child claiming a triumph. "Humph. Shinji accepted my invitation and is going to the land of demons with me." Sasuke blinked. "You're going abroad during vacation?" Shinji shrugged and lied casually. "The land of demons isn't an ordinary place." Shion immediately chimed in. "That's right. Shinji's totally right." Sasuke's gaze swept over Shinji and Shion and finally landed on Asuma. The sash tied at Asuma's waist marked him as one of the daimyo's 12 guardian shinobi for the Land of Fire, a reputation the Academy students knew of, even if they'd never met him. Sasuke's competitive instincts awakened. A chance for real combat training, he thought. He stepped forward. "I changed my mind," he announced. "I'm coming with you to the Land of Demons." "Ah!" Shion looked bewildered. Sakura grabbed Sasuke's sleeve. "Sasuke, we agreed we were only seeing them off." Sasuke only smiled coldly. "I changed my mind." Before anyone could respond, another voice spoke up. "I changed my mind too. Count me in." They all turned to see Kimimaro. Sasuke suspected what it meant. Orochimaru had ordered Kimimaro to keep a close eye on him. If Sasuke was going, so was Kimimaro. Neji, who'd come to see them off, stared at Shinji's backpack and then at Sasuke and Kimimaro. For a moment, the idea of going along appealed to him as well, so he stepped forward. "Then count me in, too." "Tenten, aren't your training plans for the holidays already full?" she asked, incredulous. Sasuke raised a corner of his mouth, confident. "Is there any better training than this?" Shion scowled. "Hey, you guys all rejected me yesterday, and now, because Shinji's going with me, you all want to tag along? What's that supposed to mean?" Inside, Shinji was furious. "I plan to slip away and complete the merging of my Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan quietly on the road. Why are you all trying to join the fun? Are you crazy?" He had hoped to finish the Eternal Mangekyo merge and return to the village stealthily. Instead, Asuma's team would be guarding them, and now 3 more troublesome riders had volunteered: Sasuke, Kimimaro, and Neji. Asuma pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling the headache growing. His original task had been simple: protect the priestess and keep tabs on Uchiha Shinji. Now this party had turned into a circus. Word of the unusual traveling party reached the Hokage's office quickly. The third Hokage felt uneasy. Neji and Kimimaro were manageable, but letting Uchiha Sasuke leave the village was risky. Refusing the priestess outright was also diplomatically awkward. Then a new thought occurred to him. Sasuke's departure might attract the attention of certain enemies. It could be an opportunity to draw them out and gather intelligence on the Akatsuki. He made a decision and ordered, "Have Kakashi come to see me." Not long after, the larger escort set out. Unlike their arrival, this journey back to the Land of Demons had a heavy Konoha presence. Asuma's squad led the way, with Sasuke, Kimimaro, and Neji tagging along. Shinji trudged behind, weighed down not only by his pack but by the knowledge that his private plan had just become public. Land of Rain. Konan knocked on the door of a hidden room. "Nagato," she said as she entered, "the candidates have been chosen." Nagato, looking tired as he sat in a wooden cart, asked, "Who are they?" Konan listed them slowly. Raiga Kurosuke, the hidden mist rogue ninja, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist; Hiroko, the Konoha rogue ninja; and Shino, leader of the Sky Ninja Village. Nagato was quiet for a moment before he asked, "Who will go to recruit them?" Konan considered her options. "Sasori was recruited by me. He can be trusted. Kakuzu should be reliable as well. I'll recruit Raiga personally. Sasori's team can handle Hiroko, and Kakuzu's group will go after Shino." Nato nodded once. "Do it." In another place, somewhere on the Land of Demons' borders, Obito emerged from a swirling vortex and peered out while Zetsu rose from the ground beside him. "Is this the place?" Obito asked. Zetsu nodded. "Yes. The Yellow Spring sect's lair is here." Obito's voice held a hint of skepticism. "Is that really worth me coming in person?" Zetsu smiled without warmth. "The opponent isn't simple. You might be very surprised." Obito let out a short chuckle. "Is that so?" The party moved on, precaution and plans continuing to unfold on both sides. Chapter 119, Sealed Land Inside Route. Danzo listened to his subordinate's report, his eyes narrowing. Only yesterday he'd completed a risky operation, transplanting the Sharingan and cells of the first Hokage into his body, reaching a precarious equilibrium. The balance was unstable and demanded constant upkeep through sealing techniques, which was a tremendous hassle, but his combat power had undeniably risen. Learning now that Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Shinji had left the village surprised him greatly. Is Hiruzen really that weak? Letting Sasuke leave the village. Danzo snorted softly, then began to do the sums in his head. He had watched Sasuke grow and judged him on par with Shisui and Itachi, perhaps better. That only strengthened his conviction that he should protect Konoha from the shadows and bring Sasuke into root as soon as possible. Uchiha Shinji was simpler. A Konoha ninja who defied him was, in Danzo's eyes, a traitor and should be eliminated. "I am Konoha's root," he muttered. "Hiruzen may be old, but I will shoulder the burden of protecting the village." Having decided, he gave orders to the subordinate before him. "Assemble an elite squad at once. Shadow the Land of Demons escort. Once they leave the Land of Fire, seize the chance to abduct Uchiha Sasuke and eliminate Uchiha Shinji." The root ninja hesitated. "Lord, the escorting unit for the Land of Demons group is Asuma's squad." Danzo tapped his cane impatiently. "Disguise yourselves as those wandering shinobi from the Yellow Spring sect. Stage an attack on the priestess to draw Asuma away. Do I need to teach you this?" "Yes." The root ninja swallowed hard and bowed his head. Land of Demons. The Yellow Spring sect leader sat on the tatami, chin in his hand, glaring at the two figures who had silently appeared before him. "What do you want?" Obito, masked, answered, "I represent the Akatsuki. I invite you to join us." "Akatsuki?" The leader laughed lightly and shook his head. "Why would I join you?" Zetsu at Obito's side took over. "We know what you seek. If you join us, we can assist you. You actually know what I'm looking for." The leader's interest was piqued. "With our help," Zetsu said confidently, "your small force couldn't find that place in 5 years." The leader's eyes sharpened. "Who are you people?" Obito's voice was cool. "You only need to know that I can help you. Choose. Join us or—" Obito was not a man for empty visits. He had come personally and would not leave empty-handed. If this leader proved reasonable, fantastic. If not, he could be dealt with, quickly and quietly. The suddenness of their arrival and the lack of reaction from the guards outside suggested considerable strength. After weighing the options, the Yellow Spring sect leader nodded. "I will join your organization, but you must promise to help me fulfill my long-cherished wish." Zetsu smiled. "I've already located the sealing land you seek." The leader sprang up, impatient with formality. "Where is it?" "Tell me." Zetsu shrugged. "Even if I told you, it wouldn't do any good. A powerful seal laid by the priestess protects it. Ordinary people can't even approach." "That's none of your concern," the leader snapped. Zetsu glanced at Obito. When Obito nodded, he revealed the location of the sealing land he had scouted. The moment the leader learned where it was, he summoned his subordinates. He would use the priestess's absence to break the seal. As the Yellow Spring sect members hurried away, Obito asked Zetsu, "What exactly is sealed there?" Black Zetsu chuckled. "A very interesting fellow." "Interesting." Obito frowned. Black Zetsu adopted the tone of one reciting an ancient text and laid out the history. A powerful priestess once lived in the Land of Demons. She eventually became wary of her own strength, fearing that if she misused it, it could threaten the world. Obito's eyes flickered with surprise. To fear one's own power to that degree implied strength, at least comparable to a Kage. It was unexpected that such a small country could have produced such a figure. Black Zetsu continued. To prevent catastrophe, the priestess sealed away her dark impulses. "So the priestess's evil thoughts are sealed there?" Obito asked. "No wonder my clones couldn't get close," White Zetsu added. Black Zetsu chuckled again. The priestess's evil impulses later became a creature called Moryo. After being defeated by another priestess, Moryo was split into body and soul. The sealing land holds only Moryo's soul, Obito considered. "Even if the leader succeeds in breaking the seal, that won't endanger our plan?" Black Zetsu shrugged. "It shouldn't." White Zetsu sounded curious. "I wonder what Moryo's soul looks like." "Let's go see for ourselves," Obito said. Curious as he was, he activated Kamui. His body blurred and vanished into a distorted whirlpool. Zetsu sank into the earth and disappeared without a trace. Outside the sealing land, 4 guards from the Land of Demons stood watch in the valley, torches in hand. The sealing land lay in a remote hollow, but none of them were lax. They all knew that if the sealed thing escaped, the land of demons would be the first to suffer. Suddenly, Kunai whistled out of the darkness and struck with deadly precision. 3 of the 4 collapsed, lifeless. The remaining guard, grievously wounded, scrambled for the signal flare at his waist. As he fired it skyward, a boot slammed down on his wrist, crushing the flare and smothering the flame before it could rise. This is a placeholder, an attempt to fetch Chapter 120 from httr-elab.com/novel. The remnants of the Uchiha are forced to save the ninja world /Chapter 20 failed with the following error. Fetch of URL, lift2.com, get failed with network error of 21.